Moore.
Here.
O'Kane. Here. Shaner.
Here.
Scott.
Here.
Waters.
Here.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Welcome to the FY25 budget wrap-up. Start with the agenda.
Project 889001, annual city building repair. Memo regarding exterior lighting options and costs. CIP, page 56, report, page 5.
Mike, if you want to come up, I mean, I guess I've talked with Mike extensively about this project. I believe in the power of uplighting and showcasing our different buildings. While I'm sad that this project makes sense with the thickness of the brick and block you have to go through, I understand that. I have been in communication with different entities, both private and public, such as OVG, about what we could maybe do to coordinate an uplighting project that was previously proposed at Long Lines and Tyson Event Center and those different things. Because ultimately, I mean, the goal with this is an effort to showcase historic properties, but also attract people to our community. I mean, it says a lot at night when you're driving through and see the impact it makes, whether you look at the Warrior, or you even look at the Commerce building and the impact that that's made. I would like to see this $200K stay in this budget, although I do understand that the additional cost for phasing the project could lead to increases. So what my proposal ultimately would be is working with them to see what at least the uplighting of the clock tower itself would be. We have some existing lights there. I just wonder what the improvements to actually illuminate that and make it a little brighter and more noticeable would be, and I think that would be a reduced cost. The reason I say that maybe the 200,000 would be there is because I don't know ultimately what that cost would be, but I'm trying to coordinate with OVG and other private entities that are interested in maybe helping out with an overall lighting project.
We could definitely just focus on the clock tower portion, and obviously the cost not going to be 200,000, I don't believe, because we have lights there today, but they could use improvement. That system, I think, is 7-8 years old. So with that, there's new technology and new improvements, and probably just the way it was installed initially to get lights up there could be improved. So if that's the direction, we can definitely work towards that.
And that's kind of similar with what Nick and I were talking about, and I think you and I talked about Tyson Event Center, is that I think they've been dated long enough and they're not the improved LED, functionality or the brightness and illumination that you're seeing on a lot of uplighting projects in the community now, which I think would benefit overall. So,
would the direction be for the balance of the money be sent elsewhere then, or is that for finance and side at that point?
I mean, what I would propose or what I would like to see is if we are coordinating an overall, whether that's with the Tyson Event Center, Long Lines, and some of those other city entities or city buildings, to look at what that overall cost would be. I'm working with different people that are interested in financing part of it, or I'm working with OVG to see what they would be able to do with their money they're investing in the facility, but ultimately then determine what is left over and where it's best used, and we could bring that back to council and have that discussion. I obviously don't want to be the sole one making that decision. I do see, look, if you would have told me that uplighting has an impact on an organization, I would have said, I think it's negligible at best. And then I saw what it's done, like I said, with the Warrior, the Commerce, or even Morningside University and their uplighting project. And I do think it changes the entire feeling of your community, especially as you're driving by on the interstate. And so I want to do everything we can to showcase our facilities and our properties. So
we can bring back a clock tower project, and then at that point, I guess we'll get council direction on what to do with
on the remaining. And I'll continue working with OVG on what that project looks like and what their scope would be and ability to pay for their portion of it, or even the convention center. We have the lighting for the installment of the I Love Sioux City thing that we need to do a part of it as well, so that could be a component of it too.
I agree with the comments that Councilman Alex made. But I put this in the category of, because of our budget overall, I mean, there are many, many projects that are worthwhile. They'll benefit the city, they'll benefit the citizens, but they're in that category of, let's afford and pay for what we can do this year and see what we have left. But it's something I wouldn't want to fall off the face of the budget. But I just, I think it's just one of those, is it affordable? And what will the public think type thing.
And I think, Teresa, correct me, the 200,000 is in the current budget, is in the current
Right.
FY '24, so it's not anything you're voting on for that portion of it. It's just if you want to reallocate it. Okay.
But they're, going forward, you also have 360, and I gotta believe you probably need to do the wall covering. The building's old enough now, but is there anything in there that you don't need?
I think that is needed. I mean, it's a hard discussion on the wall coverings, right? On when is the time?
Well, I'm just asking, that there's 410,000, I'm just asking if there's anything in there that you don't need.
I think we're phasing that already by going floor to floor. And that's why you see it over, I think there's 200 or 250,000 per year, depending on how those bids come in and phasing. So I don't believe so.
Thanks, Mike.
Project 611001, City Share New Residential Development, memo regarding the funding and current obligations, CIP, page 78, report, page 8.
Marty, you don't have a Crescent Park project at this time.
Renee Billings, Economic Development. We are working with that developer. They plan to apply for workforce housing tax credits again this year because they did not receive them last.
Right, but you're not going to need that because you don't have to pay in the year that they start. You have to pay it the year after they start. Technically, there should be shovels in the ground and dirt and construction occurring, so that's not going to happen probably in 2020. I mean, they might start in
Fiscal year 25.
but they're not going to need the money till 2026.
Potentially. I guess we haven't talked about the timing, but that could be.
And what is Four Seasons?
That's Dan Hiseroth's Avenue East and Avenue West.
Morningside Avenue.
Yeah, way out.
Out on the end of Morning.
By the, yeah.
Right, but the same situation. He's got a lot of construction to go yet at the Ridge.
I think he's planning on moving forward, and he's actually tearing down that former nursing home and going to build.
Yeah,
this project's expanded.
understand, but again, do you fund it in the year they start or the year after?
We can fund it in the year after.
We've done it both ways.
Ways, yeah.
Right. Well, the reason I'm asking is, first of all these projects in compliance? Are Chestnut, the Ridge, all of them in compliance with their agreements?
From what we've paid to date, they are in compliance. We have not paid Chestnut in '24 yet. We're still working with him.
Because they're not current on the number of houses they were supposed to build.
Yeah, they're current to the phase they're at, but not
All
yet.
I'm saying is there's $300,000 there that we don't have to bond this year, and you will still be able to meet your obligations for the Ridge and Chestnut Hill. And it would mean Crescent and Four Seasons would get money, but they would get it the year after, not in this particular fiscal year.
In number 15, item here, we're actually moving this to transfer in water and sewer. It cannot be funded by bonds. So it would be a reduction to water and sewer.
My water and sewer bill are terribly
Okay.
important with the rate increases you have going on with
I just want to make sure you're
sewer.
aware. I just want to make sure you're aware. It would be water and sewer reductions for transfer-ins.
Well, I'm worried about sewer bills in this community as much as I am property taxes right now. I don't know, I just think it's, but you're bonding for it.
Oh, we have a technical change that's occurring further in this packet. On page 15, that changes it from geo bonds to transfer in water and sewer.
But are you bonding water and sewer
No,
bonds?
it's transfer in.
Okay, I don't care. I still don't like it.
I agree, Mayor, that,
Like putting money ahead that you don't need to put ahead.
right, and
but-
that's what I agree too. If we can push this out to the next fiscal year, I think that we should do it.
Especially because the Crescent Park location, I was under the impression that he was just selling that off.
He did have it listed, but now that workforce housing tax credits is opening back up, he's going to try again to get them.
Yep.
Because otherwise it doesn't cash flow, the project doesn't work.
And if it doesn't cash flow for him, it doesn't cash flow for anyone else either, so.
Make sure the ground's solid below our feet then in that case.
So the amounts we're talking about is the 168,000? Is that correct?
We're talking about 100, 96, and 72.
Yeah, plus 132 remaining, you're talking 300,000 is what I'm talking about.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I'll move that.
This is the year.
300,000 be not transferred
Just push to the,
Just push to the next.
to the next year.
Second.
to pay them at the end then?
Well, sometime during the process.
Yeah, you'll be
Doesn't have to
paying
wait.
during their construction.
O'Kane,
Aye.
Shaner,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Project 719295, Lions Park Investment Area, memo regarding the new park amenities and design, CIP page 130, report page 10.
Jill, I do have one question about this. Jill back there.
Marty?
Oh, Marty. So at one point, and I completely missed this when this was sent out, it's great to see how we're going to repurpose some of the existing equipment, and I personally am excited for the outdoor ninja track. Super pumped for that. But one thing that, that we discussed early on, and I'm not sure if, I don't think that's any longer in the plans, was having a small dog park at that location. I know it was something that was brought up, so I'm not sure if that was one of the last alignments that we'd made. But I had a couple people tell me that we are really in dog park in that area. I think some angry neighbors that don't like cleaning up after other puppies.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure what it's going to look like when we're putting up like fencing around the perimeter or anything like that. But if there's a corner or an area that we could designate for dogs, if there's any funding, I know we had like I know Parks had some trash cans and stuff like that we had purchased. I'm not sure if we still have any of those. But if there's any way that we could still fit that into this project
Sure.
within our budget parameters.
I'm pretty sure that dog park was one of the things they looked at
Yep.
in all the meetings that they had. I would probably leave it to Jill to answer that question, but there's probably still some room here to look at some of those things, but I know there was quite a bit of discussion about exactly what the neighborhood wanted in the park. And I know that was discussed. I'm not sure the reasoning exactly why they didn't put that in here, but we can talk.
Thank you, I'd appreciate it. Everybody I've talked to is really excited about it.
There's some great improvements here.
There are. I attended the meetings, and they're really excited about the improvements and the fencing, and so it'll be great.
Project 379010, Tyson Event Center remodel and repair, 379013, annual Tyson Event Center maintenance, 379051, Convention Center upgrades, starting on CIP page 144, report page 28.
Good morning, council, mayor. We made some changes based on the feedback we got from the last budget hearing. As discussed, we have moved a few things from the 010 budget into the 013 budget. That includes the stage parts at $50,000, the parking lot striping at $10,000, and the hand washing sinks at $30,000. So that fully utilizes the expected balance in 013 and then reduces the total amount in 010. In addition, we had talked a lot about the roof repair. We had Winkler Roofing come do another evaluation, and based on their recommendation, we think we can do regular maintenance until the replacement. So we did add $30,000 in funding to do regular scheduled maintenance over the course of the next 12 to 18 months until the full roof repair comes up in the next fiscal year.
Did they seem confident that that would suffice?
They did. Do you have anything to add? They did seem confident that it'll suffice. I mean, we're stretching the roof. There's no doubt about that. But the biggest problem comes during the season changes. So it goes from cold to hot, hot to warm. That's when cracks form and that sort of thing. So we're going to try and get ahead of that, seasonally, and come in ahead of NAIA or big events and make sure we're getting ahead of those things and repairing them, before problems. So I don't want to sugarcoat it. We're definitely, stretching it, to the end. But, based on, our meetings with Winkler, I think we can manage it until the replacement comes.
I hope that holds through and true, because deferred maintenance has been kind of problematic for many areas in the city. So we don't want to see a big failure, because we're putting it off again. And I understand budget constraints, and I appreciate that, going to Plan B. But you got our in-house expert right next to you nodding yes.
And then one thing just to reiterate, you did look at, I understand the stage parts, parking lot, and hand washing is just moving, to a different budget item, but you're gonna coordinate with those different entities looking at the striping in particular and kind of the redevelopment of that area, whether it's for more of a bike path or pedestrian friendly getting across Gordon.
Yeah, and you're talking about the project with Downtown Partners, for sure. Yeah, we haven't gotten into the weeds on that, but 100% we'll make sure we're working with them.
I just think
project.
that could adjust, your parking lot striping. It's like, I don't want you necessarily to stripe everything on that far east end the exact same way that it is right now, because depending on the timing of everything, and again, I think that that's gonna be maybe a year or so down the road. I forget the timing of that grant and everything that's going on. But it's like that will change the layout of that side of the parking.
Sure.
So
Yep.
Just to be aware of that.
Yep.
I'll move those changes.
Second?
Shaner?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Waters?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
O'Kane?
Aye.
Thank you, council.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Passes 5-0. Project 159031, public safety generators. Discussion regarding replacing emergency electrical generators. CIP, page 166.
Matt? Oh, wait, which one are we on?
Well, there's no memo page. It was just the budget page.
Oh, we're on
Yep, just the
6.
budget page.
Oh, stay tuned, Matt. Hi, Chief.
Good morning. This project is the Station 1 generator. It's original to the building in 1986. It currently runs. The big issue with it is that it does not power the heat in the building, and it's reached its end-of-life expectancy.
It doesn't power what?
The heat in the building. The heat used to be gas, and it has been converted to electric quite a while ago.
Those PTAC units, but they can't heat that whole building, do they?
We have electric heat through the whole building, Mayor.
You added a bunch of PTAC, or a few PTAC units, but that was for up above.
Oh, in the...
When did you convert to
Right,
electric?
so the only heat that's not electric would be out in the apparatus bay. Yeah, that's still those
Right.
gas pipes.
Yeah, but those PTAC units can't draw that kind of power. You're talking that little one they hung on the wall on my side a few years ago.
Oh, no, that's just for the storeroom,
Right, and
Because
you've
we
got
store-
others, I understand.
because we store drugs up there. So I'm not sure if it runs that, but I'm talking about the living quarters, the office areas, those kind of things,
Why would we have converted to electric?
done quite a while ago.
Dan, why would we have converted to electric?
I wasn't part of that project.
Who the heck what?
That was through the fire department. I think Mark Aesop was overseeing that project.
Well, in the future, we got to be nice today.
How long ago was that?
I would have to check on that.
It's been a while, and he's talking about, I think, the two big units in the apparatus floor right there. Up on.
No, the apparatus is still that gas pipe.
Right, but I think the two units that he's talking
Yeah.
about are out there.
No, I think they sit on the regular, small.
I don't think so.
Well, okay, well, anyway, why, if Stan's in charge of the buildings of this city, why was he not brought in on this type of a bid? Stan? I know you don't want to answer the question. It was
I try to
rhetorical.
assist when I can. I mean,
Why in the world?
You can look back on that, couldn't you, for us, Chief, and see when,
Oh,
And when it occurred?
you when?
Sure, yeah.
but this is necessary to move forward,
Well, to be
With modern-
heat, it sounds like.
have the heat.
Stan, why don't you get involved in this part of it, the upgrading and all?
Right.
We do what, we know Stan is taxed with the other buildings, we do what
Yeah.
we can. We bring him in when necessary, like when we built Station 4, he was heavily involved, but there's times where we manage our building.
Well, and I'm sure try to move forward and make the best decision that you can. I understand.
There's no alternative, so,
The alternative would be just to not replace it, and, if we have a power outage, we would
Great.
manage probably by opening doors to the apparatus bay and blowing heat in to the living quarters that way.
That's what you have to do in your house. I mean, that's what happens when my power goes out, but it bothers me, 115,000 and I know when the first of the month is because the sirens go off and the generator starts. I know exactly when the first day of the month is. That's the only time it runs, for 15 minutes.
We'll get the facts or background on that.
It's not going to change anything, you're going to buy a generator.
No, but I want to know why that was changed as well. There might be a good reason for it.
Out here shortly.
I know.
so we're going to go ahead.
Optimistic more.
Really, you're going to go to electric heat when your gas furnace goes out. Really, you're going to do that? Please.
I'm only 20 minutes into this.
Wow.
It's going to be a long morning.
Project 459102, Long Lines Family Rec Center, memo requesting additional information regarding previous cooling tower replacement. CIP, page 196, report, page 29.
Matt, my question for you on this one, and I don't have the tower, what the estimated tower replacement is, but it looks like we're putting money aside for repairs that could go into that purchase, couldn't it?
Yeah, Matt Salvatore, Parks and Recreation Director. Stan helped on this one. The replacement cost of the tower was $150,000. We are proposing $25,000 in repairs to extend the life of the cooling tower. Keep it in the 5-year capital improvement plan and just kind of see where it lands.
But you have another 25,000 for emergency.
We will need that.
50.
Yeah, 50 total.
50 total.
And then we'll defer 100.
Then go through the 50,000. That could be used.
Well, 25 would be for other repairs, not associated with the cooling tower. 25 would be for the cooling tower itself, and that might be a little bit high.
And the 25 that's sitting there is for emergency
Other,
repairs. on-
other issues.
Oh, I see how this.
Yeah.
So you're not going to use that 50 unless it was an emergency status.
20 to 25 we would use on the cooling tower. The other we would not use unless there's an emergency repair.
Now, how much do you think this is going to extend the life of the cooling tower?
Dan? Not appreciating this morning.
Just sit in that front chair because
Yeah, just stay there, Dan.
I believe the engineer said 3 to 5 years.
Oh, great.
what is the life of a cooling tower only 15 years?
No, but it's not so much the cooling tower as is the basin that's starting to rust out. And this is where all the water
No,
accumulates.
but
And unfortunately, there's no way, I mean, we're going to try to, I think we talked about epoxying the base to see if we can extend the life of this.
Protect it from rusting further.
I knew
What's
it
that
wasn't
base
that
about?
old. That's why.
2010, you're right.
It was 10.
Came back because I remember I had the bond on it, I'm pretty sure, back in 2010. But that's just amazing that they don't last longer than.
What's the basin made out of?
This isn't stainless steel, this is just galvanized.
Right, I kind
And
of,
so when you start speccing it to stainless steel, I mean, you raise the cost of putting these in.
I know,
And I'm
but
sure
you
when-
also
I'm
raise the
sure when it was
longevity of
bid-
the,
Yeah, I'm sure when it was bid, oh, we better cut costs and do galvanized rather than stainless.
you get what you get.
Oh, we better do that, and then we pay for it in the end.
Were you here for that day?
No,
Because I think I was, and I don't think we said anything like that. We accepted the plans from the architect or engineer at that particular point in time. So
well,
I'll
come
move
forward.
that.
Second.
Same goes for boilers.
Scott,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
O'Kane,
Aye.
Shaner.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Thanks, Matt.
Project 195052, Police Capital Equipment. Memo regarding cost and replacement schedule for body cameras from comparable sized cities. Page 232, report page 30.
Chief, I appreciated the memo. I was going through it, and I guess I didn't see the comparable, maybe, or reading your memo led me to more questions, which was the 60 to 75% of that cost really is the storage of that. Is that what you're seeing in other departments, and the length of time you have to have that storage? I just can't imagine with cloud storage and I don't know legally how long we have to hold on to those. I understand if something arises and you need to be able to pull that, and then you have a statute of limitations time, in which you need to be able to hold on to that. But I'm shocked that 60 to 75% is the storage of that. And that's frustrating because we want our officers and citizens to be protected. So that's why we move forward with body cams. But then to think that this much cost is associated with just the storage of that video is, frustrating for me. I'm sure it's frustrating for you, but.
Yes, Rex Mueller Police Department. Yeah, storage is a huge part of it. The equipment, the body cameras themselves, very small part of the cost. The storage is part of the cost. What we're running into also is if we change vendors, if we go with a different body cam company, then the storage, what they charge us to store video from another company is a huge expense. John and his staff at WACICC have been very helpful. We're looking into the possibility of on-site storage as a possibility and a possible cost savings, a significant cost savings, if we store the old video, a couple of terabytes worth of old video here, either at the police department or WCICC. But yeah, these companies have kind of changed their marketing. One of the things that you asked about was the life, and there is a different life cycle between body-worn cameras and the in-car cameras. So the in-car cameras, which are hardwired, seem to last us longer. So those have minimum 5-year life cycle. The body-worn cameras, because of batteries, have about a 3-year life cycle. So they're failing within where they're expected to fail. And so what most of these companies have gone to is kind of almost like a subscription service where when you buy them, they understand that after 3 years there's going to be replacements, and so part of what is built into that cost is that, okay, when those start to fail, we start giving you new units. So We're
It's
kind
just
of,
like it's just like a cell phone plan.
yeah, and we're kind of at the mercy of the market,
Vendors
but
and everything else, yeah.
one thing I can tell you, I'm very confident about the team that is working on this project. We have officers, we have, folks from legal team, we have command staff officers, we have WCICC staff who are looking into this. So all the stakeholders who would be dealing with this, we're trying to come up with the best vendor and the most cost-effective solution for this. And that's why the storage is one of those things that we're considering. And if we can make that happen, that would be a savings. But obviously, we're going to ask you for worst-case scenario here. And if we can, depending on what we can do and we discover we can do and what vendor we eventually go with, we would love to see some cost savings. We'd like to do that, and we're investigating all possibilities. But there's no doubt this is a costly proposition. You mentioned earlier, excuse me, you mentioned earlier about videos, how we categorize them. If they're unimportant, yes, we dump those videos. But you're right, there also is a requirement for us to maintain, depending on the category, an arrest, things like that, for an extended period of time.
Yeah,
So,
do you know off the top of your head, I mean,
well,
what that looks like? I mean, what?
Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, for litigation purposes, some things, homicides, felony crimes, we keep those forever. Regular traffic contacts are dumped after a couple of years. But some of these things have to be maintained in perpetuity. And if we're good at categorizing the videos, then they do dump some of them. But some of these things we have to maintain for quite a long period of time because they are a record of that contact. We could have some citizen come advance a complaint, file a lawsuit, and we need to be able to access those videos to defend the city and the department. I don't have the exact times. I could consult with legal.
No, that's fine. And I guess look, Chief, I don't like going down rabbit holes with this, and I'm not trying to give you a fool's errand. I just really do wonder, what other communities like Des Moines or anywhere else, what they're doing and what the cost is, how long they're holding them. Are we held then that same standard? Is it the law? I just want to know that we're in line with what other departments are doing and why that costs.
Absolutely. As far as equipment and replacement, we're all falling under, we're all subject to the same vendors, Des Moines, all the departments around us that are looking at resources. And the bigger departments obviously have different considerations than a small department. We've talked to Sergeant Bluff. They can basically store their body cam footage on a laptop.
Yeah,
they don't have as many contacts.
Right?
Exactly.
I get those. I'm thinking more, gosh, what is Des Moines' budget for this? You know what I mean? You got to think of the number of interactions they're having has to be much greater than what ours is. And so that cost has to be exorbitant. And I just am curious what they're doing and if it's in line with us. If it is, then you're completely justified. And I'm
well, and a lot of this is just based on the vendors. This is the market.
That's
so
right.
They're subject to the same market that we are. Your questions earlier, I think, which prompted this memo, were about I thought the life cycle. Are we seeing the same? Yes. So that's what we researched for you.
Yep.
The vendors have told us what you can never. They said, hey, we'll do better when the bid comes up, like trying to indicate to us that, hey, when you pull the trigger, we'll work in some cost savings, but we can't count on that. And so, the bids that we got were the bids that we advanced. And John has a great team. I don't know if he wants to say anything about our
I wanted to ask John a question.
There's none better than John.
Crack team right
That's
there.
right. John, my question to you
exactly.
is, the storage issue.
Yes.
What is the likelihood of us taking our existing storage that is stored by the old vendor, but we own it, correct?
Correct, John Malloy, IT.
What is our probability of being able to store these terabytes without?
I think there's a high
storing?
probability. It depends what
Okay.
kind of redundancy we want as far as, again, it's sort of it's steamroll effect as far as you have the initial data, then you have to back up that data. So there's that consideration as well. So again, we need to dig deep into it. I think, again, I've shared this with the WIC Commission. cloud services are not cheaper than in-house, 90-some% of the time.
Right.
So,
What's that?
cloud services are not cheaper than in-house. Most of the price points come in like this.
Are similar.
And then they have you, and then you're locked in. So
It's the subscription that
Yes,
they've
yeah.
got you
Then they
locked
have.
into, just like all the Microsoft products. How many
Right.
gigs do you need, and this is what it's going to cost you.
right.
Right.
John and Chief, I guess then my additional question would be, what is Woodbury County doing? You know, because do they have body worn cameras?
Yes,
So-
and they actually got them before we did, and that was, I think, for liability's sake in the jail, and they have Axon, which is kind of the top-tier manufacturer and one of the most expensive providers, but it's a competitive thing. All the other manufacturers, and that's what we were hoping, is that some of these other manufacturers would want to catch up to Axon with features and things like that. And so through the, our RFP process, we had hoped to vet out, somebody that maybe had a value-added product. But yeah, they've had Axon for a while, and like I said, several years before we actually got body cameras.
Hey, the mayor and I were pushing it for years before we did get his.
Well, I have confidence
Won't go
that
there,
you'll
but-
choose the right vendor. I
Yeah.
just also would really appreciate getting that storage here in-house from the previous data.
And credit to John and
Absolutely.
Tracy for, having Tracy as kind of attached to our staff, telecommunications.
Been a great
position.
benefit, hasn't it?
Huge benefit, beyond obviously the active communication, but having somebody that understands our needs over at the police department, because we're a bit different than any of the other departments, but the collaboration has been terrific, and I think we've been able to see sides of this that we wouldn't be able to see without an expert like her on staff.
Well, that's probably the only thing we're going to control is that storage as far as pricing.
That's a big part of it, and
Right.
that's why the team is actively working to find a value-added proposition. A lot of this depends on what vendor we go with. If we would stay with the same vendor, the storage would be the same, but we still have to try to get the best product. If we're not happy with the current product, we want to get something that will be a better product for the city. But that storage thing is a huge part of the discussion. It's something that's being considered, and I would love to see us come up with a solution that provides a lot of value for the city and that doesn't equal up to the costs that we would expect with, like John said, cloud storage or something else.
Okay.
My recollection was that early on, the technology wasn't as developed as you would have liked. There were a lot of questions about the technology. That's what I recall from the
Yeah, well,
early
some of that
years.
was when we adopted the body cameras, that was mid-cycle, and it was great. It was very, but we were getting a product that was an older product. And now the market being what it is, they all have to catch up to each other. So I think there's a better product out there now, more features. One of the things that we love the idea of, some of these camera companies allow you to live stream, meaning that a supervisor could watch a pursuit of an officer where he's not even involved and pull up his body camera and watch what's happening to guide that. I mean, there are these value-added pieces that we would find quite valuable if, depending on what company we went with. So they're advancing the technology rapidly, and we all know this. The technology is already, by the time it hits the market, they're already working on the next project, and that's just what we have to deal with. But we want a good product for the city.
I interpreted Councilmember Alex's comments about other cities, because I had the same question, looking at Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, Davenport, not so much for what vendors, because if they're the same vendors, but I would like to have some input as to what their experiences have been, what the actual experiences have been, what they have found to really work, and what they have found not to work so well.
And
That's the way I
storage and
interpreted your-
storage solutions and everything.
Yeah, so it's more on experience, is
Yeah.
how I interpreted your comments. I might be incorrect on
No,
that.
you're
That's, yeah,
No,
but
we can certainly reach out.
I think I would like to see that, and maybe.
I think conversations have happened with some of these agencies, but if there's specific questions other than their experience with the vendors, storage, things like that, is that what you'd like to hear?
I'd just like to see what they think is the pros and cons of what they're using and how it's working for them.
Well,
It'd be very general, but.
Yeah, we're all
Well,
having
and if they can
similar-
budget, like what are they budgeting on storage? What are they seeing? If you're saying 60 to 75% of the cost of storage of this, is that their experience as well? I mean, that have any of them moved to on-site storage versus cloud or other things?
Well, I'm certain it is, because the vendors would not want us to call our neighbors and find out that we got a vastly different bid than they did. That would kind of hurt their credibility. But we will have active discussions with some of those bigger agencies. Obviously, Des Moines is going to be different than us because of their numbers, but we'll see if they
And that's just it.
similar.
I just wonder relatively, you know.
Yeah.
And John, the last thing that, this is probably more directed towards you and maybe having this larger discussion, but it's like, gosh, if Woodbury County is using top of the line, right? And they bid that, they have that, surely then they have storage needs. I just wonder, is there a competitive advantage to bidding that together, or, you know, looking at what theirs are and what are their storage needs, and you know, where could we put that? How could we coordinate that? Could we get a better bid if we bid it as one unit of all of the police department in Woodbury County? You know, then you have the deputies and the police force. I mean,
They've been very happy with Axon, but again, with the county, much lower calls for service than we're dealing with in Sioux City.
Sure.
So the volume would be a lot less for the road.
their volume, yeah.
So, yeah, their volume. Now, as far
But I
as the
just
jail
wonder as
goes, I
far
don't
as-
know about
yeah.
that.
Not
bidding.
necessarily, though, because they're wearing them in the jail, so they've got a lot of personnel that.
No, in the jail is different,
Well,
absolutely.
that's what I'm saying. They got a lot of cameras over there. It's not like the 32 deputies are in cars. It's all that jail personnel. They're storing a lot of stuff.
Absolutely.
Because they have to store just like we do on a daily basis, probably more, because they're running those cameras every time they're in the jail.
I don't know their policies. I mean, like, our policies are anytime there's a call for service, so maybe their policies are dictating anytime you deal with an inmate. So
Sure.
I'm not certain about their policies. I'd have to ask the sheriff.
I'm pretty sure it's anytime they're in that jail, in the cell area, those cameras are on, or when they're booking. I know those cameras are on, because you've seen that.
Absolutely.
So their storage is not minor, I can tell you that.
And that's what I'm saying, John, is I would just appreciate, I mean, you can kind of work with both agencies then and coordinate some of those conversations, and it sounds like the chief is confident in the team that you all have to analyze this. I just think you both have needs, you both work together, you know, you and Sheriff Sheehan, I'm sure, have those conversations. It's like, what can we do to have the most competitive bid? And if that is top of the line and they're super happy with that, and you find that other agencies are as well, and there's a reason to go towards that, if you go to them and say, look, this is the contract you currently have with Woodbury County, we're considering also bidding our officers to have this, what is, you know, a negotiated price? I got to imagine you would get a more competitive bid of expanding those scopes that large, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, you won't know till you ask.
Exactly, yeah. I just would ask that you, coordinate that effort, that maybe especially like the mayor's saying with storage, if they're gonna have that more needs, then maybe we share on that cost, you know?
No, valid questions.
Just a discussion, not saying that, I'm certain.
And I get, to be honest,
Certainly not
Alex,
knowledgeable.
some of these conversations may have already happened, and, you know, because I think our team has been reaching out, and a lot of the decisions we make on products are based on our discussions with other law enforcement agencies. Was this a good choice? If you move to this, and word gets out quickly, so those discussions are had, and it helps guide us. If somebody puts out a bad product, the first person to talk about it is, you know, within law enforcement, and we usually get an idea of who's not getting what they paid for.
No, I agree, Chief. I'm sure some of these have already been had, but yeah, just, at least it's just my perspective of talking through this and how to save money and coordinate better together to be able to find cost-saving measures, but yeah.
No, we agree, and that's what we're looking for, is we need the product that the city needs. This is the body cams, and it's an essential part of the way we do business, but we also want to save the city money, and I'm confident that the team is looking at how do we get what we need and not pay an arm and a leg for it.
I have a question that, based on your memo, storage should be an operating cost. Why is it being bid as a capital improvement? I mean, you bid this project and they tell you that here's your storage for the next 5 years? I don't understand how this works, because historically, if you're paying a different amount, that should be operating costs, and the cameras should be the only thing in the capital budget. So why is this different?
It's my understanding that that's part of it's like a lease program. So when the cameras,
Well,
if they were to
lease
go bad.
programs, historically, you pay so much a year, but, so how I mean, you bid this and you're bidding the storage, how long do you know the cameras are, when I pay for my cloud, I pay monthly, based upon the usage. And I pay for, my capital is buying that little computer now that's this big, that used to be this big, that sits on the desk now, it doesn't sit on the floor anymore.
So that's how they go about the replacement. So when the cameras, from what I understand from the captain, when the cameras, either the body-worn cameras or the camera in-dash cameras, something would happen with them, in that period of time, they replace them for you. So that's
But
kind
how
of their
long is
program.
this for, if that's the case?
But from what I understand, 5 years.
This is a 5-year
This
deal?
is a 5-year deal.
The
Then-
last
then
time
they
was a
would
5-year
replace
deal, and
5
they didn't
years.
last 5 years.
Well, the body-worn cameras were 3 years. That's kind of the life expectancy. But from what I understand from Judy, if you go with them as a full package, if something happens at that 3-year mark, they will replace them at that time.
Yeah, now without, so one of the vendors, I think the leading vendor, I'm not going to mention names, but it says the body-worn camera provider offers 36 and 60-month refreshers in their 5-year lease program. So costs are built in to replace. I mean, you can choose what level of service you're going to get from them. And I think part of the unknown for us was we didn't know when we went to the body cameras. The in-car recorded a certain amount, but when we went to body cameras, we really didn't know how much volume we would have.
Because you never.
And I think the past few years has provided us a baseline. So that was another.
So how are you paying for that storage today? It's in your operating budget.
From the prior, yes, from the prior cameras.
Well, then your operating budget, if now this is included, should go down by that amount.
We would hope.
Well,
But I think what happens
unless
is
we
with
have a
vendors.
cost for the old
Yes,
vendor.
old storage.
So that old vendor storage will remain there. Unless they
we
can
find
put it
a
on
place
the
to
server.
That's
put
part of
the
the
old
problem
But if we
is,
can get it on the server,
Yes.
yes, operating costs should go down.
Well, I like to make sure that happens, because sometimes it goes,
We will make sure
Yep,
that,
that's,
trust me.
well, part of the issue is if we changed vendors, so we have the vendor we have now, if we changed vendors, they make it prohibitively expensive for us to store our old video with.
Right.
The
So they don't want to deal with our video.
that's why you need the guy with the S.
That's
Yes.
why we
right.
have the guy with the.
that's why I called him up here.
And you have no forfeiture money for this.
I think, we would have to look at, so the two different asset forfeiture pools, we have to look at how they can be used, because sometimes the asset forfeiture restricts how it can be used if it's something that's
But
already.
I asked this question last time, do we have any forfeiture money?
We'd be happy
Would
to
like that answer.
answer to that. So we'll take a look at, I mean.
I know that's a pot of money that nobody's supposed to know about.
No,
but when you
it-
want these type of items, I think it's incumbent upon you to give us that answer. I don't know what else that money gets used for. There's no accountability to us for that, and that bothers me that we never look to that type of funding for these type of projects that are terribly important for your department, that these cameras have a direct impact on that forfeiture money, how you build a case, and if anything should be used for that money, it should be this program right here, in my opinion. And I don't know why it's such a secret that we don't know that today. That bothers me a little bit, but I'm bothered by a lot of things in this budget, so we'll just keep moving forward. But thank you, John, for all you're doing to work as a team in getting this done for everybody. How big will that computer be to store all that stuff? This big?
Whatever fits on your desk.
Project 719373,
Thanks, Chief.
Downtown Annual Infrastructure, memo regarding the 8th Street reconstruction project. CIP, page 321, report, page 31.
It may not have to be done. Pat did a good job of patching it. What's the condition of that street, that 8th Street up to the hill? That's what this is about, I believe, right?
Yes.
How is it?
It's not bad. I mean, it's not, it's okay. There's still some utilities that need to be replaced.
But
But we never included it in the original project from,
It doesn't need to be replaced, that's okay. It's just beat
oh,
up.
it's pretty crappy. I drove up there the day.
It's terrible, but.
It is. Seriously, I just by chance, they were patching the day that I left from a meeting here, and they went on right, I sent you that picture that day.
Yeah.
We just had the discussion about it, and they were just, the street crew went through and patched, and that's fine, but it's not something that's patchable. It's like washboard type, damage. So, and Gordon, I understand, what is it, below it or above it, we're doing work coming up?
well,
Both?
yeah,
Right. So,
west of it.
okay. So what's your take on it?
We have the money in the West 8th reconstruction because we bid that out. You guys pulled it, or before we bid it out, you pulled it for economic purposes, I'm assuming. So we could take the money from there and put it towards that section, and the engineer is willing and able to do it.
And when would that repair start?
Again, we wouldn't do this project until after the law enforcement center is demolished summer, so it'll be next year, next calendar.
I just wonder what's going to happen with that this winter when people are trying to get up that hill and it's just wonky.
Right.
Well, Pat does a good job of keeping it passable.
He does.
That's not a problem, but.
Would you have a priority in either of the two projects? I mean, what do you, I should have driven them, I'm sorry.
No, there's, where does it end? I mean, we have
Yeah,
that
a
patch.
million different road projects.
And you're-
Or we can go over to West 8th and
Yeah.
fund that back again.
And this
They're all
one-
needed. So
Yeah,
I
I get
can't say that this one's needed more than the other.
This is connected to another,
Well, it's at the end of another, yeah.
right? So,
So
So
it
that's
would,
why
it would
maybe
be
it makes
easy,
more sense.
it'd be easy to add that one and
Right.
finish that off and then just backfill it next year, the West 8th project.
that was my thought process.
We could do that.
Take it on the tail of this one.
Gordon, so this is an additional like $528,000?
Something like
Is that
that,
what we're looking?
yeah. And we're,
But they've got the money, right?
to take
Yes,
it?
they have the.
yeah, we're taking it from the West
not
8th
new.
project.
So it's not anything new.
No,
Yeah.
but it's, that stretch is another $500,000.
Right. It just wasn't in the original CIP to add that section, so
And the
we
engineer.
didn't presume. What's that?
Engineer was willing to,
Yes.
in it with it?
Because the other project's not final, because we're just kind of sitting on it, waiting for the law enforcement center to be demoed.
I'll move that.
Second?
Let's hope the county does what they said they'd do and get it knocked down.
This summer, yes.
Waters,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye?
O'Kane,
Aye.
Shaner,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
No.
Project 758201, Skywalk Rehabilitation, memo regarding the scope of the Skywalk study, CIP, page 328, report, page 32.
I can. That's me. So the scope of this is just primarily just the infrastructure of the Skywalk. Any, I guess, structural issues with it? It has not. The last assessment, or structural assessment, was done in 2009, and it has not been started yet. We've been told by the engineering company that they will start in late spring. So we don't have any information yet, but there will be a memo summarizing the findings plus the whole assessment that will be sent to you at the time.
Was there something that triggered this, other than the 15 years that have passed?
The assessment?
No, on doing the assessment study.
I think that there's just been some ongoing issues with the skywalk, and we're just making sure that there's not structural issues with it.
Leaks and things like that.
The scope of the skywalk assessment, is that going to include surrounding buildings? Because there's been a couple reports of issues with surrounding buildings and damage that's been incurred to the skywalk from
This
said.
is just the structure of the skywalk itself. Yep. Because the
Would that
surrounding
include
building.
attachment points to surrounding buildings though?
Yes, that would include those, yep, but the actual building itself wouldn't be our, you know,
Right.
our,
So if the building settled and it caused something to crack.
right. They would identify any issues at this, there, or any of those types of things.
Because
Yeah,
there's
if
like
they-
the, right next to the Alpha Discovery, that whole area has undergone some significant stress. And so that's a major point of concern as far as potential problems to the longevity of the skywalk in that area.
Right.
That I would hope would be included in that scope.
Anything that attaches to the skywalk will be evaluated at those points of attachment.
This won't have an impact on the special assessments that are paid for the skywalk, will they? Aren't there special assessments?
Yep, air assessments, correct. I mean, if there are significant structural issues and we need to make repairs, there will be some assessments that occur if we want to keep the skywalks open. So we'll have
Are the specials current?
all but one, I believe, and you'll be seeing that come to council soon.
Okay,
That's an ongoing issue.
okay, thank you.
Project 519123, unplanned water main replacement, memo regarding annual expenses and evaluation of the FY25 funding request, CIP, page 378, report, page 33.
I knew you could find the projects, like.
As I mentioned, there's plenty out there to do.
I have a question probably to Gordon. Is there a reason you're bidding a water main project? Is it ready to bid? Why would you bid it in July, I guess? I'm curious.
Which one are you referring to?
Westcott.
No, it's just not ready yet. Now, it's bid out. It's not ready. We haven't finished the design on that one yet.
Okay, and then the storm sewer repair project at 12th and Floyd. When does that bid? I can't, trying to see that on here.
Yeah, we're expecting July. We have to get some video done first.
And the inlet repairs, that bids in June or July too?
Yes.
Boy, I wish you could do that earlier, but you never get that done. I mean, inlet repairs be done now. I mean, you can start them now, and to bid those late in the year.
Is there a reason we bid them later, or is it possible to bid?
Funding. Just wait, I mean, till when the CIP is approved and the funding's
Yeah,
available.
but this is already approved. This is last year.
Some of it is, yes, I think.
And we're not bidding until next year. That's what my point about this work is, that we sit on that pay bond money for a year. This should have been bid in this fiscal year, and these projects that's why I ask about these balances, because we're not bidding them till the next fiscal year. So funding is not the problem. This money's been in the bank for almost 9 months now. And we got to somehow change that system and get this stuff out, because then you're gonna run into the same thing
The next year.
the next year.
It's almost like
So
we're
we don't, so
prepaying.
we
You're a
shouldn't
year
fund all
behind.
these projects, or we should find a way to get them bid.
Does that make sense, Gordon?
Oh, it does. It does. It's a matter of personnel and getting those projects going on them. That's all.
Because you're talking millions of dollars that we have bonded for that don't get done until the next year. And that's why I was asking for this list.
Because you bond it and then you carry it over.
Correct.
Carry it over.
Gordon, let's add that to our team meeting, next agenda.
Okay.
See what we can do to kind of catch it up, so going forward, it's
We're on the right.
on the right fiscal year. Thank you.
Yep.
Project 549-101, unplanned storm sewer. Memo regarding annual expenses and evaluation of the FY25 requested funding. CIP, page 428, report page 33.
That was kind
The
of,
12th and Floyd was on there. It's the same thing.
Go back for a second.
Yes.
In the memo, it says, it's recommended that the remaining $250,000 of the CIP be used for project balance. So that would reduce the transfer in water funds. We need somebody to move that if you want to.
I'll move that.
Second. Yep, right.
Moore,
Aye.
O'Kane,
Aye.
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
your job to make sure that gets done.
Any additional discussion on item number 12, unplanned storm sewer?
No, I will say, Gordon, if you feel like you need, if we need to examine reallocating staff to make sure that it's a priority getting bids out, infrastructure is something that I think we all are passionate of catching up to and possibly getting ahead of if we can. So hopefully at your team meeting, that's something that gets discussed. If we can reallocate staff to make this happen quicker, we definitely want to do it.
Talk about
Well, and the DGR can only do so much work. I don't know how they do it all the way it is, so.
Mr. Mayor,
Just saying.
I know.
We spread it around quite a few different engineering
I don't
companies.
Did you
think
look
there's
at that
any more
list?
discussion.
And some of these projects, we do in-house, like the
Right.
intake, the inlet.
Right.
I know,
And
but there
that's
may
what we're
be a
gonna get
year
caught
where
up.
you gotta not do it in-house and get caught up is all I'm saying.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
manholes and inlets should be bid right now because they can go to work on those next month and have them done before, and not worry about carrying them over the ones they don't get done in the fall. I just think it's that type of work. And if you bid them even in January, you're gonna get a much better bid than if we're bidding them when people are loaded with work. That's my problem. So if it means we have to get some engineering firms on these and
Get caught up.
get caught up. Plus, citizens feel better about their tax dollars when they see people working on projects that,
Year round.
yeah, so.
Yep. Number one on our agenda at the next team meeting.
Engineering department projects, memo regarding all FY24 unbid and unfinished engineering projects. Report page 33.
The unfinished portion, actually, I didn't have that on there. I only put the projects that are to be bid or currently bid.
Yeah, that's,
We have several projects that are unfinished that
well,
I
as
didn't put on here.
long as you bid them, that's,
Thanks, Gordon.
We will now go on to the technical change section. All of these will be voted for at the end unless separately requested by council. Project 749084, Annual Airport Capital Projects, updating FAA funding and required match from 9010 to 95.5 on the runway snow broom. CIP, page 56, report, page 34.
35.
I'm sorry. Project 611001, City Share New Residential Development, removing the GO bonds, adjusting the transfer in water and sewer funds accordingly. CIP, page 78.
and why do we have to do this? If it's in a TIF district, why do we have to do this?
Well, we can't guarantee all of those projects are in a TIF district. So at times, I've talked with Gordon, with Murdy. We have talked about dividing up some of these types of projects into different projects so that we can assure they are all within that TIF. But it's difficult to track them, noting where exactly the funds went when we have 5 or 6 different projects being paid out of them. Unfortunately, the new bonding laws will not allow us to use that catch-up that we used to use for bonding in the general purpose. So we're unable to give like grant type of funding out. It has to be infrastructure, and it has to be infrastructure that's managed by the city. So the city's infrastructure that is managed by the city in order for us to use bonding. That's why we've moved it from bonding to water and sewer transfer-ins. We are trying to creatively come up with a plan. ED, myself, and legal are meeting to come up with a plan for these types of projects. We don't have anything right now, but going forward, at least in the 26 year, that will, we're trying to get ahead of the game to try to determine what we can do to try to fund these types of things and have, a plan in place.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Mayor, that would be the residential TIF.
Some options, yep.
Okay.
Project 663-162, Southbridge Rail, removing the FY25 work plan and reducing the transfer in Donner TIF to $433,360. CIP, page 86. Project 663-382, Northside Commercial and Residential Development, revised work plan for FY25 and 26, revised funding for FY26. CIP, page 116, report page 41. Project 319013, Wilbur Alf's Library Improvements, increasing the FY27 work plan to $2,374,724 by increasing GO bond funding. Page 174. Project 4, okay.
Sorry, but I didn't see that in the stuff you sent us, so hang on.
This was distributed at the CIP hearing. It was the air unit that was forgotten. Project 459212, Lewis and Clark Park improvements, adjusting the FY 2025 funding, increasing the private funds from $25,000 to $100,000, and reducing the GO bonds accordingly. CIP, page 206. Project 719373, Downtown Annual Infrastructure, updating the FY26 through FY29 work plan and funding sources. CIP, page 321. We'll now move on to the operating. First item, City Council, discussion regarding the improvement request
Do
for
we
the...
need to move all those?
Those will be moved at the end.
At the end.
Discussion regarding the improvement request for the warming shelter, operating page 91, improvement requests listed on page 7.
I'd like a vote on that.
I would too. I'll make a motion to approve the request of $50,000 to the warming shelter.
I had some,
Already in.
I can second, but I have some.
Don't you need a motion?
It's already in the budget.
It is in the budget, yes, but we do need a motion.
What? To approve it?
Yep.
I'll make the motion, but I do want to have some discussion on this.
And I second it. And
Thank you, Alex. I think we're at a crossroads right now with not only the warming shelter, but the homelessness in Sioux City. And some of the numbers that were given to me, and I would ask the staff to confirm these, but and these are just point-in-time numbers that were passed on to me, but for this year, there are 296 sheltered and unsheltered, and 19 entities that serve the homeless population in the downtown area. There were 271 in 2008. And then the other issue that's going on is, other than City Hall, the library, and the bus depot, there are no public restrooms or drinking fountains in the downtown. And that's not for lack of trying. We've tried that, but it didn't work very well. Cook Park is the closest, and those restrooms are often locked. I think Matt can confirm that. So I didn't know for the council members that might not want to be involved in this kind of a request. I didn't know if it would make a difference to anyone if you knew that where the funds were being used or where the funds would be going to support the warming shelter at this time. The utilities including the water and the electric and gas are about $32,000 a year. So if you want to have that applied to those utilities, knowing that that's where the money's going for the next year, if that would help, we could include that in the motion. When I say we're at a crossroads, I think we really need to take a hard look. And when I say we, not only the city and the city council, but downtown partners, all of the stakeholders, I think we really need to take a hard look at what our vision is for downtown. And what do we want that to look like, and what do we want the future to be for warming shelters and addressing the needs of the homeless population. It's ongoing, and to everybody's credit, and everybody could go down the list and say, well, the city has done this, we have done that. We can say the warming shelter has accomplished this, they've accomplished that. There's a long list of all the accomplishments that have occurred in the past decade. But I think now is the time, and this has triggered it, the warming shelter is asking for funds, or they may be looking at closing their doors. What's the impact of that on the downtown area where we have, aside from the humanity part of this, if you would look at the investments, we've invested millions of dollars in the downtown area. For me personally, what has been a little bit challenging is in the past we've been told that our law enforcement spends a lot of time at hospitals, taking homeless people, hospitals to be whatever they have to do with them at the hospitals, and they have to spend that kind of time. And if they didn't have to spend that kind of time, it would free up their time. Now what's being told to me, or what's being brought up, is now we're spending too much time making calls at the warming shelter or making calls in that area. And I don't know how many are really attributable to the warming shelter, how many attributable are to the empty buildings that we have in the downtown area. But it seems to be a moving target for me. I mean, I bought into the fact that, yes, we shouldn't probably have law enforcement sitting in the hospital for hours when they could be making other calls. I don't know what the time spent has been for the warming shelter, but the needs are the needs, and I think the reality is we just need to come to grips. I have, as I think all of the council and the mayor have over the past decade, have attended several meetings on homelessness and the issues that surround that. And I think a lot of those meetings have been worthwhile, but there isn't any real plan of vision of where we are headed today. And I think we have to come to grips at that. I don't know if we're doing self-imposed deadlines. I don't know who would take that and run with it to come up with a plan. But I think we have a lot of stakeholders that would be willing to work on this for the good of the community. I, for one, just cannot, in good conscience, not fund something for the warming shelter because they have served a purpose. I know they get blamed for a lot of things. I know if I've seen situations where something might be wrecked and somebody will say, oh, that's the homeless. They get blamed for a lot as well. But I can't, in good conscience, just to let the council know, I can't let this go and just say, you know, that's not really our issue to address. And we can find a lot of fault on both sides. I don't want to find fault. That's just not my style. I want to improve the situation we have and protect what we have in the downtown. So, as we come at the crossroads, I just would hope that we would have some kind of support for the warming shelter, whether it's in the way of, okay, we are going to designate our funds that go to the utilities, or designate our funds to go to whatever's important to each of the council members and the mayor. I respect that. But that's why I've made the motion, and Alex, thank you for making the second on that. And those are my thoughts. That's just where I am with this whole discussion about the homelessness population in Sioux City, Iowa. Thank you.
Well, I'll go ahead and jump in because this is an issue that I've weighed on my mind and I've thought a great deal about and tried analyzing it and taking a step back to really think what we are doing as a community, what we are willing to address, and what this action would mean. Because I understand what Dan is saying, and I agree with a lot of his comments that we are at a crossroads and we do need to do something more intentionally to combat homelessness because of the investments that have been made and different things that are happening. But I also understand the mayor's concern that as soon as you offer or extend, financing or a budget to one entity, that suddenly, you're creating favorites or you're, singling out different organizations and others are doing just as much to really provide a public good or a public service. And I also understand where Julie is coming from as far as the calls of service and different things that our community services and neighborhood services are doing regarding homelessness. I will say, after having multiple conversations, I've tried talking with neighborhood services. We had a nice conference call to be able to discuss the situation, what their thoughts were to meaningfully move forward to addressing homelessness. I also had an extensive meeting with Shayla from the warming shelter, which I greatly appreciated. I will say that I think neighborhood services would also echo that she's doing a great job. She's been there for now a year, and I think that she's really turning the tide and being intentional about what the future of homelessness looks like, and is taking steps that I think give me hope that we will be able to address and work through this together. After those discussions, where I landed on this proposition or this request for funding is I said to her, to Shayla, I said, I don't think $50,000 is sustainable. If your monthly expenses are over $70,000, $50,000 towards that is really just a drop in the bucket or not sustainable, not going to impact sustainable change. And when we asked about that in the meeting, they said that it would provide leverage to other communities to be able to go to them and ask for additional funding. And that's just, I don't think that it's addressing the issues that we have before us. I don't think the $50,000 will get us there. And so that's where I wanted to have a more comprehensive discussion about what the future looks like and what the city can do to really be the leader in addressing this and coordinating those efforts to say, look, we're not happy with homelessness because of all these calls of service, everything that it's taxing, not only on our police, fire, and EMS, but also on the hospitals, the emergency rooms, all things like that, but at neighborhood services, all those different entities. What we are trying to do, not to mention just the look and the appearance that we want to give for people that are visiting our community. So I proposed to Shayla, I said, look, at the end of the day, I feel comfortable providing funding, but not just a line item in a budget, not just $50,000 that I don't think is sustainable or going to move the needle on addressing this issue. And so after coordinating with her and with neighborhood services, I presented 3 different options. One was to really allocate more of that $50,000 directly towards neighborhood services to coordinate with them and the warming shelter, having a direct liaison or working with them to provide additional services to better alleviate some of those things that are happening there, whether it's an intake program, whether it's direct coordination with the rapid rehousing and getting those people so that they're not just endlessly going to the warming shelter and utilizing that service, but really finding a path forward to be able to reduce its use.
That's great. Where are they going to put their head at night?
Well, it would still be a problem.
They're gonna put them down by my office, because one guy's sleeping under the vacated house and the other guy's sleeping behind, and I get to deal with the garbage every day. It gets a little old.
Yeah, I was going to say, there are two other options. The other option I presented was, I said, look, I can't necessarily, like I said, give you just $50,000 to use to have a roof. So I said, what if you had a $50,000 almost line of credit towards different grants or being able to match different funds? If you were applying for a large grant that would be way more sustainable for the future of your building or organization, I said, I would feel much more comfortable if you're leveraging $50,000 to apply for a grant that's $250,000 or $300,000 or what have you. And then the second one, or the third one that I gave as an option is I said, look, what if we take $50,000? I don't think it takes all of that. But we actually have a really focused conversation of getting all entities together to see what the 5-year strategic plan is, or the vision to combat homelessness in this community. We gather all entities in the community that are truly working towards this, and I know some of those efforts are already happening with the chief of police, with Downtown Partners, with others, and say, okay, we have this money allocated. What is the plan? Is the location where it needs to be? What is the structure of what it needs to be? How are we coordinating this effort? What is the vision and what are our goals? Because now Shayla's doing a great job of tracking those individuals, not only the point in time, but also the people that are coming into their place day in, day out, and seeing where that's looking and where it's going. So I said, those are the three options that I would feel more comfortable with. And she did get back to me and said that she understands and shared and shed some light really on their monthly expenses and what they were addressing, what they were hoping to do. I know that they already have a strategic planning meeting set up for later this month. So I'm hopeful for all of those discussions. She said she understood and said that she would love the idea of and thought it was a reasonable approach to be looking into the ability to utilize that money for grants and matching that if that would be available, or at least brainstorm other options, or perhaps working with neighborhood services. And when I said that to neighborhood services, what three options I presented, Amy with neighborhood services already had some really good ideas of things that we're looking at doing regarding a full-time versus part-time administrative staff and what that could mean, or how we could maybe shift some of those responsibilities and work better with the warming shelter. That would, to my end, Matthew, is to make this a more sustainable impact rather than just $50,000 that's not even a full monthly expense.
Do any of our internal plans include housing homeless populations?
I think we're doing a great deal of that.
And that's great. And if somebody is at risk of homelessness because they can't afford to pay their rent, I think that we do fantastic with coordinating those people, getting them on the list, which there is a wait list for Section 8 housing, so these people aren't getting into an apartment, like you say, but they're at least getting on a list so that one day they can have an apartment. But we're not housing homeless populations. I've read several books. One of the most recent books that I finished was How 10 Global Cities Combat Homelessness. And one theme is, if it's not a priority for the council, if it's not a priority for the city, then it just doesn't get done. And then tent cities go up, and then services are stretched thinner. If we are disgusted by the amount of calls that we're making to the warming shelter, imagine those calls being spread throughout the city, bridges throughout the city. Imagine those calls going to the library, which I'm sure some of them already do. Imagine those calls going to the interstate bridges. Imagine those calls going out to Morningside, going to the edges of town. The response time for fire and for police to those locations throughout the city is to our detriment. And frankly, this is a drop in a hat compared to what cities around us are doing to combat homelessness. Housing first has to be the approach. And if we're not offering housing, then we at least need to bolster people that are willing to take that load from the city, because they are taking that expense from the city, frankly. Now, if it's something that we don't want to consider funding forever, then I think we need to take the much more sensible approach at looking at grant writer positions in the city, which we are this year, and that's great. But I truly think that a grant writer has more of an impact in the economic and community development area. If we have somebody on staff that's not just working to find grants for the city of Sioux City, but working to find grants for nonprofits in our community, or working to find grants for potential businesses that want to move to Sioux City, we can have a larger impact. If we're not willing to put our money where our mouth is, then we at least need to find somebody that can.
Well, I guess my only response is that I think my due diligence of really trying to think creatively, because I could have just been a no vote.
Yeah.
But, you know, I had multiple meetings that were multiple hours long to try to really invest the time that I thought was necessary to analyze this issue and think about it from multiple levels and try not to have an emotional reaction to something that I think really does make me, it does frustrate and concern, and I'm trying to take in everyone's perspective.
It's a public health crisis.
So that's where I think, like, I was trying to come up with creative solutions that would really improve the longevity of an organization that is providing a public good. So
Well, and I think it speaks volumes that you took the time to sit down and have those meetings too, because that's important to sit down with the members of the community that have those concerns.
So that's where I agree that the city should have a priority to addressing and assisting these efforts, but I just want to do so in a sustainable way. And so that's where I would be comfortable moving the 50,000, whether it's towards neighborhood services to assist with the application of those grants or the matching funds of them, or just more coordinated effort between them, whether it's another individual coordinating as a liaison between those services and other community service or what have you. It sounds like Shayla and I know Amy and Jill were very open to that discussion and creatively coming up with something that will make a much more lasting impact on the warming shelter rather than just the $50,000 that I don't think will get them as far as I would hope it would.
And there are things that we can do at the city level that I think would be hugely impactful. We've had success with our homeless information management system, or HIMS, and that's something that has led to some change and some better working between organizations. Some of those meetings have occurred over the past couple of years. There was several meetings that took place downtown with several community members and stakeholders. Jim Hayden has a great idea about what direction he'd like to see it going towards. Our homeless management system is great for intake in terms of homelessness, but it doesn't always catch people that are not homeless yet. So the people that are just one missed rent payment away from being out on the street. There are other systems that we can look at migrating towards that could help us catch those frequent flyers that call the ambulance 4 times a week, or those people that are one rent payment away from being on the street. And I think the more proactive we are, the less we have to worry about the impact that that's going to have on our city and our homeless population in general. So I think that that would be a good direction as well.
Teresa, how's the housing services, how are they funded now?
What neighborhood
Is it-
services?
Is it through HUD, through HUD payments? So I don't know what the impact would be if we start paying from another fund.
HIMS is funded through HUD right now.
Pardon?
Our HIMS system is funded through HUD. And I'm not positive, we'd have to ask Jim Hayden, I'm not sure if those funds could be used towards a city management system, but a city management system is essentially our HIMS system expanded to include our entire community.
I think it's more important that we send out a strong message of support and how you want to allocate it. I think that might still remain to be for discussion. I don't know if we can decide that. I don't know if I can decide. I'll stick with myself. I don't know if I can decide how that allocation should be made and what's the best way to do it.
I think the idea that you brought up in terms of paying utilities is something that's scalable. If they are open full year, obviously that would be a larger chunk of the budget that it costs to maintain and run the building, and that would take an impact away from them. If they are open part of the year, then obviously the financial obligation of the city would be much smaller, and we're true to the funds that are being spent. I understand that we don't want to see every organization in town going forward. I do think we need to look at expanding the possibility of the grant writing department, and I know that's another line item on here, so I won't get too far into it. I think they can be more impactful in economic and community development. I really do. And that's no slight against Teresa, because I know that you run your department very well. But I think that if they are in the finance department, they're going to be dedicated to just finding grants for the city, which they should be, and that should be their primary job function. But being able to use that as an advertising point for prospective businesses coming to town, being able to use that to help bolster our nonprofits who maybe aren't as skilled when it comes to grant writing, or just to show them how to properly and more effectively write grants, I think would be a huge advantage to our community.
But
And
you
it's
also
nothing
have to
new.
find how to pay for that time. I mean, yeah.
I'm not sure that we can employ somebody that would write grants for nonprofits. That's their number one kind of goal.
Because grants can take a
Staff
ton.
is to hire a on-point grant writer to help them fund their organizations.
Well,
They could
right
probably
now,
teach us.
in the past year, and I know you guys all get the same notifications I do, there's been 3 or 4 nonprofits that have either gone under or were at risk of going under. We all get those notifications. And right now, if you're on any of those boards, how they sustain themselves is by having board members write grants. And without any training or any skill, it's essentially what we've survived with at the city level. We have department heads write grants. If they're not skilled at writing grants, then they find somebody in their department that is more comfortable writing grants or finding grants. And that success is very much based on how much time they invest in that skill of grant writing, or what classes they take, or how much money they spend to be able to write grants better.
Right, which is why I sponsored the improvement for a city staff grant writer. And I've been advocating it for 4 years.
And I share the comments of the mayor. I mean, he and I both spent a considerable amount of time in downtown. And so, Mayor, I agree with what the reality of it is, and because I run into the same experiences that you run into. But I'm hoping that we can get on a path of looking at this long-term and just really having a solid plan to address the homelessness. Not sure I'm sold on the word combat, but but address the homelessness that's going on in Sioux City, Iowa.
Teresa, my question to you is, and I don't know where the vote will go, right? I mean, I'm proposing options, and I'm trying to coordinate with Shayla and Neighborhood Services to see what that would look like and how we can best utilize those funds. My question to you is that possible? You are probably one of the meetings that I should have had as well, just to talk through this as far as if we did make a $50,000 pledge to be utilized in supporting the warming shelters efforts, but directed either towards grant matching or working with neighborhood services to assist with those, if you tied it to that type of thing. Is that possible to?
It is. It would just have to be drawn in an agreement, and everybody would have to agree to it. That would be something that legal could help us with the verbiage, but it is certainly a viable option.
Including it in that option, Alex, are you opposed?
You've got 3 months because this money doesn't go until
Doesn't go.
Right.
July 1st.
With the options that you outlined? Or do we even need that in the motion today then, if we have 3 months to?
You've got 3 months.
I was gonna say, I wouldn't mind in the next 3 months for them to talk about it, neighborhood services and the warming shelter, to devise a plan moving forward of whether that's grants or otherwise. Cause no, I don't, again, I think then you're getting into just basically covering a line item for an entity, and I do worry that others come forward. It's not a sustainable fix. I mean, it's not.
I would
really-
suggest if we don't decide today that it's brought back to council and there's a vote on how it's going to be spent later. I mean,
Vote on the approval today?
you can certainly vote on the funding today, but I would vote on the allocation and the agreement. Obviously, we'll come back to council. So
Well,
You can vote
I made,
budget today, as, right now it's currently in the budget as other agencies.
so include that then in my motion. we're going to look at the other options that would be available to designate the $50,000 pledge. We'll call it a pledge.
You're going to move the funding, but look at other options that
Right.
come back to council as approved.
So right
Yeah,
now,
we're able
we're
to do that.
moving to direct it to neighborhood services, but knowing that in the next 3 months, it will come back to look directly towards what it's going for, right?
So right now, you have just a motion to move it, so you
We'll just-
to vote on that, and you need to then amend.
To support the warming.
Or amend it.
Please, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. You all right with that?
I'm,
For the
Can we just
second?
hear that one more time?
yeah, I was gonna say, so we're moving to
without it
direct
being
it to
neighborhood
neighborhood
services.
services directly for the benefit of the warming shelter, but coming back with an agreed upon plan for how that funding will be used.
Correct.
Moore,
Aye?
Kane,
Aye.
Shaner,
Aye.
Scott. Waters,
Aye.
Passes
Let me-
4-1.
You know, I give everybody a chance to talk. Let me tell you my side of the story. Number one, Little Leagues have to give us a financial statement every year. We've not seen that from this organization.
And that's where I have that now.
And if you
That's why
got
I
$50,000 on a budget that's 840, all you've done is put a Band-Aid that's not going to solve the problem. Number two, they've relied heavily upon one contributor in that organization for an awfully long time. My understanding is they've lost that contributor. And so they never had a sustainable game plan. And now, when you don't have a sustainable game plan, who do you come to? The city. Always the city. If we vote for this, you have every right to do that. But I'm telling you that other organizations, when they get an unsustainable plan, are going to come to the city. And how do we pick winners and losers? That's been my problem with this from the very beginning. And if they're in such a financial crisis, will they be able to make it to July? We don't know that, but yet, I mean, if they're not getting the money till July, I'm a lot more comfortable because we'll know. But there's no plan to move this. I hope you're right, Alex. I hope it is. But there has been no plan to move these people from homelessness to homes. It's been a warehouse. Now, a warehouse that's needed, I get that. I understand that. It serves a very good purpose. But we need a plan that moves people. And listen, there's a lot of mental health issues. There's a lot of alcohol and drug problems. I get all that. But still, if we're going to fund the Hope Street, those people have a disciplined program, and they're going to be here next, by the way. These guys had a chance to get grants, just like the Schessler Shelter and all those that have come in the past to get money. They didn't want government money. Now there's a crisis, so we got to have government money. I'm sorry, but that just doesn't sit well with me. So.
And I completely agree, which is why I said I'm not okay with just supporting a line item, but that we have to have a better plan moving forward, because I cited that same thing when I was talking with Shayla, is that I believe in what the Hope Center and Hope Street and those different organizations are doing to alleviate some of that reliance on these services. And that's where I do really believe in Shayla and her leadership. I think that we can move the needle, but I completely agree it's not sustainable.
Mayor, I do think the way the motion ended up being made and approved addresses some of those concerns that are points well taken. I don't disagree. I agree with your points, and they need to be addressed, and we definitely need to have a plan. But we've been talking about it for year after year after year, and this might trigger that. This might trigger to have a plan that you're referring to. I think we absolutely need that.
Well,
It has to
you know,
include
when I
a
get
plan.
to hire a kid once a week to go pick up garbage that blows around, now, drive by my office and look right behind my office under the porch of Scott Mann's house.
Right.
I hear you loud and clear.
And Mayor, I did want to address one thing, because I brought up a lot of your points to Shayla when I visited with her, because I shared them. One of the comments or frustrations that I had is previously not accepting or pursuing grant opportunities that have been offered to them that would have been more sustainable. And it's my understanding that there has been a change of heart along with a change of leadership to be much more open to those opportunities, which I think will lead to more sustainable efforts.
I hope you're right, but, you know, the other side of the coin is, it's no secret that they think I'm an uncaring guy, and they make that very well known because I disagree with that. That's unfortunate. You can't disagree with something without having their board be very unhappy with you, but I've had that happen in my whole life here, so I'm not going to take it out on them and vote no because of that. That has no bearing on it. I just don't think that model is the model that actually decreases the amount of homelessness.
Let me address that, Mayor, because this is important to me, that what you just said. I really don't think you have that reputation at all. You wouldn't have been the longest-serving mayor of Sioux City if you did. And what you're doing today is you're suggesting a better way to look at something. And I don't want you to quit doing that. And I'll stand up and say that to anybody that doesn't have the facts and they don't know how we operate up here and how we think. We so much, I take great pride in this council and the mayor that we can agree to disagree, but we always come up with a better plan. We always come up with a better way of doing something. It's been the most positive body that I've ever been on, that I've ever served on. So I'm just saying, no, we need everybody's voice to be heard. And I'm sorry we took the vote before you had a chance to have some discussion, but I'm glad you still added that in. I think we all feel that way about our mayor, and I think we feel that way about us. At least I feel that way about the other council members. And I feel very safe to say what is on my mind, what's on my conscience, and I'm always looking for a better way of doing things. Don't always do it the right way. I'll be the first to admit that. I don't say it the right way. I'll be the first to admit that. But what we have accomplished as a council has been, our progress has been just second to none in the state of Iowa, in my opinion. So I just wanted to address that. And
I'll be rooting that it works because it's long overdue.
I know.
Well, and Mayor, if I can, one thing that I will say is I think they're looking not just for leadership in the term of financial support, but they're looking for guidance from this council as well. Their strategic planning is scheduled for Friday the 15th, the Ides of March, as it were. And I think they'd be very receptive to any feedback that you'd be willing to offer them in terms of structural changes or operating budget changes or how they can be more impactful with those dollars. Because I don't personally, I don't feel that you don't care about homelessness. And I don't think members of that board feel in that way either. You've done a lot. You were there for their ribbon cutting to deliver a proclamation, and you would not take time out of your day if it was something that you were against. I think you're passionate about it, and I think that it's something that you want to help solve. And I hope that you use that voice to offer those suggestions to them, that guidance personally.
Matthew, is that an open meeting then?
Yep, the 15th at...
Where is it held?
It's going to be at Central Baptist Church on Indian Hills.
I'd be careful saying it's, I don't know if it's just their board strategic planning or if you want press and everything else there.
Well, that doesn't matter. We can find that out. You guys can find it.
Okay.
Let's
Well,
keep
I don't
moving.
know, Mayor.
I'd just like to
disagree
add
with you all
too.
the time, and I still serve with you.
I'd just like to add that prior to this, I had the same kind of thought process that Alex had in that I felt like the $50,000 can't even cover a month's expenses. And I've been a huge, I won't say huge, I've been a supporter of the warming shelter by way of food donations and things when I owned my restaurant. However, I have come to the feeling that there hasn't been an end game for the residents, and kind of the same thing, that I would like to see the money be used in a more impactful way. And I don't know that there's, and I'm certain that there isn't, but not 100%, that there hasn't been any grant applications, anything like that done. And that's where I would like my yes vote will be for a sustainable plan. What will the money be used for? How can they work with neighborhood services to help them apply for grants, things like that. But I will be a no vote if there isn't a plan that says this is how we're graduating people out of here. This is what we're doing to help them not to have to come back at 5 in the afternoon and then leave in the morning.
Okay.
All right, we'll move on to economic and community development. Memo regarding the portability issue of housing voucher users who have moved out of state. Operating, page 111, report, page 44.
This was just basically updating us of
Yep.
the efforts to pass legislation, right? I mean,
35 families
oh, I think it's horrible.
on the
but
wait list.
we just can't address it. I mean, and we need systemic change and a bill to pass.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah, Amy.
Amy Tooley, Housing Services Manager, and advocacy for portability reform continues to be one of our top issues for all public housing authorities in Iowa. And being part of Iowa NARO's board, we continue to advocate for that every spring at our DC conference. And last year, the House introduced companion legislation to the Senate. And so we feel like we're having some movement, but we continue to tell our story and present our numbers. And so I put together these statistics just for the last 2 years, just to demonstrate that it's taking about 2.5 of our vouchers in order to continue to subsidize a family out of state. But right now, they can continue to bill us indefinitely based on how it's set up with the HUD guidelines.
I have 2 follow-ups then to that. Number one is, who is the sponsor or champion of that in the House? Do you remember who introduced or who had that companion bill?
It was, yes, it was Feenstra.
Okay.
Who brought that forward.
Good. And then the second question is, I got to imagine if we're dealing with this in Sioux City all the way across the state, and I know that's what I was going to ask, is it's like between Iowa City or Cedar Rapids, it's like, and Dubuque, are they just underwater with this? They got to be experiencing it even more than we are.
Iowa City's the one that started and started complaining first about this years ago, because I remember it in a board meeting of the League of Cities. They brought it up because it was a real problem there. I don't know if it still is, but they were coming in there and living for a few months and moving right back to Chicago.
And what about other states? I mean, is there, and again, I don't know the temperature in Congress, and so hopefully I can address some of that or talk with that delegation out there in DC, but are other states dealing with this as well? I don't know. Obviously, the mayor hears what's going on in Iowa from other mayors, but.
I think it impacts a lot of states with lower housing costs more than it does on the West and East Coast.
Sure.
And so there's more support for portability reform in the Midwest, but especially in Iowa.
But I was thinking Nebraska or Minnesota or Wisconsin, or you know what I mean? Because, geez, there are other cities that are closer to Chicago or Minneapolis or wherever where they have to have that portability issue.
Correct. And we have applicants applying from all over the nation for housing vouchers since they are like gold. Our waiting list is 9 to 12 months right now. We are fully utilizing our budget.
You need to write Feenstra a letter, have all of us sign it, thanking him for doing that. We oftentimes are critical of our elected officials in DC, and we're not very complimentary when they deserve to be complimented. So we need to get a letter out to him thanking him for introducing that.
And making sure that this is a part of the agenda. I know that it's been brought up in DC when we visit with the delegation, but I think hopefully this is something that we can continue to hit home, and now that there's a companion bill, maybe there's some hope that there could be some movement. I know that Senator Ernst, I think, was the one champion that on the Senate side, and so, but it's been years since there's really been movement on that. So I agree.
All right, thank you. Okay,
Events facilities, discussion regarding convention center's budget from OVG 360, operating page 124, report page 45.
I got a question. I mean, we artificially, and we make this benchmark so high, and then if you do anything, you get most of the money. I'm going to go back a few years, we should have turned it into a basketball house. I don't understand how, I think I could run it at a $400,000 deficit, and then you're going to get rewarded if you bring it in at a $400,000 deficit. That just doesn't seem very fair to me, that we're going from like 280 to 400. We would have been better off to not do business there. What do you get paid if you bring it in 400,000?
If it's 400,000, we don't make anything because that's how the benchmark is set.
Okay, what do you do if you bring it in at 300?
I'd have to get back to you on the exact language of the contract.
Jessica, what do they get if they bring it in at 300? I think they get 75.
Jessica Johnson, City Manager's Office. I don't have a copy of the contract with me. I left it sitting on my desk, unfortunately, but I know that they'll get their monthly management fees, which equate to about, what, $5,000, I think,
Correct,
a month?
Yep.
And then above that, I think they get a percentage of, the performance per month. So there is a payment that they would get, but as far as like improving the deficit, I think there's a qualitative incentive and a quantitative one, and I'd have to look at the specifics.
I'd like to know that.
So it's one of those, where surely if it goes below the 300, there's an incentive.
Correct.
To the mayor's point, and Jessica, you and I have talked about this, is that we just don't want to make it such that, okay, you go 100 below what that is, and then we're offsetting that by giving you, a benefit to that same level, because then it's not a net benefit for the taxpayer.
Oh, well, it's not 100%
Yeah.
of the deficit reduction.
About 75, though, I think.
It's that high. I'm happy to get back to you.
Yeah, I'd have to get back to you. I don't want to
All right.
misspeak about it.
Okay.
But one thing I did want to note is the 280 that was proposed, I don't think it's ever been, like 400 was based on the prior average of the prior several years. So that's not like that was made up out of thin air. It was based off the history. The 280 seemed super aggressive. I'm not sure where, like, that's not going to be met in this fiscal year based on where it's being projected. So I'm not sure that number was realistic either. We wanted to provide a realistic number. Also, now that we've had a little bit of time to go in through and kind of see what's on the books for the coming year, also know that we need to make some improvements on, bringing in, some additional support staff, making sure there's people in that building every day, making sure we can operate events at the level that people expect. We wanted to go in there and number one, make sure we can operate that building in the way that it deserves to be operated. We can win some business back to Sioux City that we've lost over the years. I think we can reduce that deficit, but we wanted to be realistic in the first year. We were going into it with a lot of unknowns, so I wanted to be conservative and not overpromise based on the information we have at this time.
Okay.
Mayor and Council, I was able to pull up the contract. It's 25% of the improvement. As listed as an example, if the operating loss is $350, OVG would get $12.5 of the $50,000 improvement. So it's 25%.
If you want to change the budget as noted in the memo, we'll have to have somebody to move that.
And what would this move? This would just approve or affirm?
400.
Yeah, what we have.
O'Kane.
Aye.
Shaner.
Aye.
Scott. Waters.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Finance, discussion regarding the improvement request for a grant coordinator, operating page 130.
This position has been requested for multiple years from members of the council. This year, I believe Councilmember Shaner wanted to proceed forward with this request. So I submitted an improvement request due to her request. I'm happy to answer questions or.
So the biggest questions that I have, well, first and foremost, I guess I would say I'm in support of this effort. I think that we need to do better. There's a lot of grant funding out there that we need to be aggressively going after, especially when our community relies heavily on tax asking or property taxes, anything that we can do to search for, whether it's state grants, federal grants, those types of things, and aggressively go after them. I think for a number of years, we have relied on available staff time or staff individuals that it's not their expertise to be applying for these grants and pursuing them. And, you know, to pat ourselves on the back, they've been pretty successful, you know, in being able to secure a lot of that funding. And I think that that gives me hope. But I think that having a dedicated position that hopefully you can find someone that's really well versed in not only finding these grants, but applying and securing them, I think will be a really good move and hopefully net far more benefit for the city than the cost of this staff member. The two things that I would kind of ask for clarification or just wonder is, number one, I really want to make sure that this individual is coordinating with the departments and being intentional about working with them and through them to identify their needs, what opportunities might be available, what they're working on, because I think that's going to be essential. I mean, I know Angel does a lot of that in Parks and Rec, but it's because she knows what the vision is and what the future is.
I envision this person would go to each department and better understand the department and what challenges they're looking at, and then help to identify the areas in which they're looking for funding or need funding, and then go look for the grants. So
I agree.
I think it has to be, you know, a collaborative effort.
Totally. I just want to be intentional and make sure that those are the expectations that are set before whoever this ends up being. The second thing, and this is maybe more of clarification because I just want clarification on this, is a lot of grant writers, it's unique if they are specific to one organization. Sometimes a lot of them are contract employees or working with various entities and just taking that time. And so my question is I wonder, right now as current proposed, a full-time position with the city as a grant coordinator. What I'm wondering is if it would actually be a savings or if we would have more interest in applicants if it would be a contract employee where we just have them on contract for X period of time or pursuing that. I mean, and again, I don't have the answer to that. I don't know who would apply or who would have interest, but I just wonder what the overall benefit would be.
That rolls in with one of my questions I was going to add today, because I have mentioned a contract worker, so it wouldn't be a new position with benefits, et cetera. But would this be a good time for us to sort of have a champion challenger and do a contract employee and with a staffed employee, and maybe we net 2 grant writers? Because it is going to be a daunting task when we open up the gates to letting our department heads put requests in, you know, for grants that might be out there. How many departments do we have? 23, 20, something like that.
A lot of different under the department.
So perhaps we could look at that, what a contracted employee versus, you know, an employee, because I think it would be a great way to, you know, show us that one works better than the other, or we get 2 out of the deal and really have 2 people working. And would they report to you, Teresa?
Current structure, yes.
Okay, I think that is key, because oftentimes there's matching grants and who has access to what we have.
Or where you could leverage.
Right.
I don't know what, I mean, I have no idea what it would be like to go look for a contracted employee.
Mhm.
That I can't speak to. I mean,
Right.
certainly can look into it, but I don't
Mhm.
think if there is a market for that or
'Cause-
not.
Because my thing is
Is
that
there? Okay.
I know at least 3 grant
Right. Okay.
grant writers off the
More than
top
you
of,
think.
Yeah, there
off the top of
probably
my
is.
head
There probably
that
is.
are all just
Right.
private contract people that you hire them based off different grants or different things. I just worry, I like the idea of a contract employee, but also I fear that then they're not really boots on the ground and going to spend time with the departments to get to know them and get to know the direction. So that's where,
So that contract employee is given assignments based on what we need, perhaps rather than the total interaction. And we also have our fiscal responsibility and public policy team that can make recommendations as well. So I think coordinated efforts, but I really would like to see that door opened for a contract employee to perhaps support our employee that says, oh my gosh, I've got to get 15 grants written, and now let's contract Jim Jones from ABC Company, who's been doing this for, 20 years. We find a strong person to back that position up, because I do think this is floodgates. I really do.
I think that identifying the needs.
Correct.
Eye-opening.
Yep, absolutely. I agree. I've felt that way for.
I have a couple of questions for you. The first one, do we have a list of grants at all? Have we kept a list of what grants are available? Is there like a central database that you can go to for grants that are being
There's a
offered?
lot of different areas you can go to. I mean, a lot of different grant databases or, that we get information from. We certainly know what grants we have gotten in the past. We keep track of that through our audit, and Tiffany and Sarah do.
But we don't keep track of what's available.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
No.
And then my second question is,
To answer your question, we at the library, it's paid through the state, but we have the foundation directory that lists all the available grants and foundations, and you have to come into the library to use it, but it is available. So just,
Great, that's a great resource.
Federal Registry puts
Yeah.
them out all the time, and it's, Gordon's, there are chances to get them, but Gordon and Brad and those guys are so busy doing their own deal that, listen, Angel does a great job of writing grants. Mike's got, obviously, somehow you get grants, some of them are automatic, I understand that. And the police department does their deal. What I would hope is we'd go look for grants, get somebody that maybe is contracted, that knows about funding for sewer plants, that we don't know anything about. And I'm not saying that Tom wouldn't look for it or Brad wouldn't look for it, but they're out there and because we don't do it every day. So if we're going to do a contract, which I would support more than an employee to start to make sure it works, I wish we would get somebody that has an expertise in areas we don't. I don't think you're going to do a better job than Angel does. She's been as successful in those grants as anybody in the state, if you check. I don't think you're going to get anybody that's going to, that's what Mike's job is, and he talks to the FAA every day. He knows what grants are out there. I just think we need somebody in areas that we don't have expertise, and maybe a contract one, and they may not be in Sioux City, by the way, would be better.
I guess 2 comments I would make is there's really not a static list of grants. We get notice of funding opportunities, NOFOs. They come out through the federal programs, and that's how you're made aware of them. We have an idea of when they might come out and what might come out, but you really don't know until those are released. And then to the mayor's point, I think specialized, to have one person have the knowledge of the gamut of the city is not probably, so the specialized areas for a contract person definitely has a place.
My second question may have been just answered by the mayor, but my second question is, and I know I'm taking the risk of leaving someone out, but fire, police, library, and airport, we have ongoing grants that have been successfully applied for and approved, so that wouldn't take, this grant coordinator wouldn't take the place of that ongoing grant that we have going. Fire comes to us a lot, and police with these grants that, and I'm not saying they're automatic, you still have to work for them, but but they wouldn't replace that, because we've got a good thing going
Right.
there, so.
Right.
Is that what you were saying, Mayor? So
Yeah,
it would be.
I mean, I don't
it'd be
know,
a contract
I don't know what a contract
grant
writer's gonna, how they're gonna write a better grant for trails than what Angel has.
Right, and we wouldn't expect that,
Right.
but there are many departments that aren't staffed
Right.
that could be applying for grants that are not being done.
The other thing that's been, well, the other thing that's been proven, in addition to grants, and Matt Salvatore is just key to this, are these contributions, donations you get made to the foundation year after year after year. And you've been very successful in that, but that's separate.
You sent your check in this year? Because he's still accepting them. You're still taking checks,
Oh,
aren't you?
yeah, yeah.
For that
At least,
statue.
at least I know you cash them.
I've run out of my in-kind contribution, haven't I, Matt? But that's separate and apart, isn't it, from the
Right,
grants
right.
that we're talking about? But no, you've been very successful, and have others, but we talked a little bit about that today with the warming shelter, about grants and having successful grant writing, but you've been successful with just the private contributions. That was proven this past week.
And that you don't know, I mean, to Mike's point exactly, you don't know what you don't know. I mean, I was talking with, we have a grant writing class at Morningside, and I was speaking with that class and talking about a possible opportunity or something that I wanted funded. Well, we knew that the community foundation has money available that would fit that bill, but then they were looking into it, and Union Pacific also has funding available for something that would fit that. And so it's like, you get searching Union Pacific, the railroad, to where it's like you can apply for all of these different things that you never knew would maybe apply. And that's where this person would maybe be knowledgeable to supplement those things, because I agree that, like, look, I mean, the chief is doing plug and play type things for different programs every single year applying.
Successfully, yeah.
Yeah, and successfully. So hopefully then this would
Yep.
supplement
Yep.
or
Yeah.
expand the pie to what.
Okay. Well, do we need a motion to at least leave the money in? We can define later what it is? Is that what you're saying?
We want to approve.
We want to approve a staff.
And I would just say too, and I know Teresa, you'll do this, is moving forward with this, you just want to keep a really good track of what they're pursuing, who they visited with, what they're applying for, and it will take time. It's not like you're awarded immediately, but
Right.
I know that you as a supervisor will do a good job of analyzing that, but I think as a council member, I'll want to know, was this worth the rub? I mean, you have a lot of people that are requesting things and are very deserving in our community and in our city departments. We need to make sure that this is expanding the pie rather than just draining on it, so.
So it would be my recommendation that we vote to fill the position, and then we will bring it back to council, and you can determine whether or not we use those funds for a contracted employee, or, I mean, because if we do not fill this position right now, we won't have the funding in the budget.
Yeah,
So there are
that's
times that
what
we
I'm
do
saying.
that for like the land surveyor, we're not able to fill that position, so then we use it to contract out. So
And my thing is, you don't know if someone's available and wants the full-time position or wants the contract.
that we would bring any agreement that we have to
I
contract out.
really believe we
council.
find a full-time grant writer.
Yeah, we may be able to.
I move that.
Mm-hmm.
Second.
That's
Here.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Waters.
Aye.
Moore. O'Kane.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Memo regarding options for reducing credit card fees charged city, operating page 130, report page 46.
I do want to note that I misspoke in the memo. It says on average 10,354 credit card transactions per month, or per year. It should be per month for utility payments. So there is roughly 125,000 payments per year that occur for the utility payments.
And you feel that the $3 is just the cleanest way of doing it?
Well, unfortunately, the percentage, because of the dollar amount of some of the items, there is a minimum that they charge us, and we can't do a percentage or the minimum. The system doesn't set up to allow us to do that. So the closest I can get is $3. That gets, it's about where the percentage at. It's about, I looked at the average, about $75 to $80 for a utility payment, and that's about 2.9%. Now, obviously, any given day, depending on the number of transactions we have, the percentage changes. So we can't say for sure it's going to be 2.9 or 3.5%. So it kind of changes, but the average is right around about that 3% mark, which equals out to about $3.
I'd move $2.50. I think we have to do this, but $3 on top for a $70 water bill seems a little bit much, so I'd move 2.5%.
$2.50?
Yes.
Okay.
But you're still not going to cover your.
We're not going to cover our,
No, we're not going
and
to
that's
cover it
okay.
no matter what, but
I mean,
we're also going to see a decrease in credit card usage because people are doing it now to get points.
exactly.
I think that's true. And you still have the option to pay with your e-check, so
Right.
to not pay. So if it doesn't, now they come and they don't get the points, they decide to do the e-check, we will see, I think, a reduction in credit card payments.
I'll second.
Then why not just leave it at the 3, I guess, would be my.
We could reevaluate it next year based on the number of transactions we have and determine.
I would move to do that. Let's not lock it in. Let's look at it in a year.
So do you want to do he motioned for 250. Do you want to do we'll vote on that and then we can certainly reevaluate it.
Scott?
Aye.
Waters?
No.
Moore?
Aye.
O'Kane?
Aye.
Shaner?
No. I want it to be 3.
Passes 3-2.
Fire, memo regarding differences between charges for service and reimbursement for services, EMS, operating page 150, report page 47.
But you said this was just because you inputted it
Correct.
correctly? Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Fine, we don't.
Okay, if there's no other questions on that, just pertaining to grants on the boiler, Mayor. We received through the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act funds and through Mid-America, the city received $250,000. That's when that boiler was replaced with electric back in 2011. It was a 50% match, and we were having boiler issues prior to that were identified, so that was part of many facilities in the city benefited from that.
Okay. Doesn't make it a good decision, but anyway, thank you.
Library, memo regarding difference between two positions in the improvement request for staffing changes, operating page 175, report page 48.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. So update us, or not update us, but just refresh at least my memory. You're thinking that essentially you have two different types of employees, right? And when one is away from the desk, the other is basically fulfilling that exact same role of the other employee.
At the branches, yes.
Yes, but the other employee is being paid more because it's a different leveled position. Their training is the same, their knowledge is the same. I mean, I'm trying to understand because it's like surely when I'm at work, I'm answering questions that are outside of my scope, that are outside of my duties necessarily, but I'm just answering or directing towards assistance.
Well, but they have to handle those situations, and our concern is their union positions, and so they're not supposed to work outside of their job description. And we've not had any disgruntled employees, but our fear is if they were a little bit disgruntled, they might, file a grievance. But we also, this would allow us much more flexibility in our staffing. It's better customer service. And then the staff, they could work on all the desks. We wouldn't have to worry about this. Were they trained? Are they working outside their scope? So
it's just more uniform as far as the employees and then being able to shuffle them to different places and different things.
We, currently, and I have a graph if you'd like to see, we are pretty low staffed compared to the other libraries. We're 7th by number of staff, and we have 3 locations. Our problem is, we look at maybe adding additional staff because, we have things in our strategic plan we'd like to add, new services, and I my staff is stretched thin, and I hate for ask them to take on any more duties. We feel like this is a more fiscally responsible solution instead of asking for an additional staff to take these, and it would allow us that flexibility among the departments and then to take on new services.
Rather than bringing on additional, because we,
Right.
and the overall impact, I think you said, Teresa, is 30,000, right, or 31?
Yeah, the minimal, was 30.
Right at 31,000.
Yeah.
Per year.
Whereas,
That's
yeah.
immediate
And
impact.
is that annual then, or what do you mean?
Yep, that's annual, and that's the immediate impact. Now, there'll be subsequent impacts as they continue to move up in the steps, but that's the immediate when they move them right now.
Correct.
Yep.
And are they covering the duties outside of the scope of their position mainly when someone calls in sick or over lunch hours, things like that, or?
Yeah. If someone has called in sick, if we're short-staffed, and it happens mainly when they're at the branches, but all the staff rotate through the branches because of scheduling.
So the total impact, the max impact it will be is around $125,000 once they all get to the top of the step.
But that's multiple years out.
That's like 7 years, yeah.
But that is an annual impact. So that continues every year. It's not a one impact. It'll continue.
It starts at 30,000.
Yep.
And then it
But it's-
continues to grow annually, but it'll be 30,000 one year.
And 30 plus the step.
Plus the next, right?
It's just very similar to like if Janelle would bring us something before council saying we're switching this employee to this different classification because it makes more sense to be able to. And
Janelle's
to
here.
Helen, to your, she's back there. And to Helen's point, I guess the argument that I see for it is if you're not going to be able to staff those positions, you know what I mean, and bring on additional employees, which would be much more than $30,000. In fact, it probably would be on the jump on nearly that $100,000 when you're talking benefits and salary. And so when you're thinking that, it's like, well, at least this would allow the flexibility to move between or different places to be able to do that. I mean,
Yes, and and of course, it would be a benefit to the staff because of the increase in their classification, but it'd be a benefit also on customer service. We'd have it, right now, if they're like over across the street, they stop at the circulation desk, patrons think anybody behind the desk is a librarian. So they ask them, reader's advisory questions. Well, we can't help them at that desk because of their job description, so they have to go upstairs then and talk at the reference desk. This would just allow us to cross-train better, so all the staff can help the patrons and they don't have to go to multiple desks to find their answer.
so is there a motion or what do we need to do for this?
If you want to fund it, you have to motion, and vote on it.
Approval
Second.
presented.
Waters?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
O'Kane?
Aye.
Shaner?
No.
Scott?
I wish I could, but no, I'm just, with everything else going on, right?
It's not against the
Yeah.
idea of it.
I
I
understand.
appreciate what you do.
I do
This
too.
is just not the year for me to vote for it, sorry.
Passes 3-2.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Parks and Recreation, discussion regarding the improvement request for a Parks Enforcement Officer position, operating page 202.
I'll move that.
At this point, we'll need to either vote to approve the Parks Enforcement Officer or an amendment to change it to the $50,000 in professional services for Woodbury County.
50,000.
Yeah, I like that too. Second.
Very similar to like the grant type of thing, whether you have an employee or whether you're focusing on contracting that work.
But could you give us, once you put that in place, can you give us kind of a, well, in the summertime, it'd be kind of nice to have a monthly report of just
100%.
what-
Yep. We'll give a monthly report to the council on the status of how everything's working.
And I think we talked about this at length, you and I have talked, but then I think it was in conversation earlier too, in the original budget discussion, but look, you're probably going to need 2 people, you know, at different times, especially on weekends, through some nights, different things, whether they're using a UTV, whether they're using bike patrol or coordinating with PD on bike patrol, different things. I hope that we're able to coordinate that effort and really see an impact. I think that visibility is really important rather than just having them in a marked squad in the parking lot. I mean, that's not my intention with this at all, to have them just driving around in a marked squad. Like, I mean, granted, if you have to go from the riverfront to Bacon Creek, I understand. But just, even if you got out at Bacon Creek and rode the trails once, you know, on a bike or something, to be able to show that presence and check in with people, that's my intention with this, Matt. I mean, I hope.
Yeah, there'll be specific tasks assigned. It's not just being present. There'll be specific tasks. Yep.
Thanks, Matt.
Moore?
Aye.
O'Kane?
Aye.
Shaner?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Waters?
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Discussion regarding the improvement request for funding for the operation and supervision of the Riverside Soccer Complex. The improvement request was listed on page 8 of the letter.
Of the letter.
Page 8 of the letter.
The memo?
No, of the operating letter at the beginning of the book.
Riverside is a component of this, but this also would be half-time mountain bike park maintenance, which is key.
Now we got to have that.
So that would be a dedicated position for both of those facilities, just to clarify.
50/50, 60/40, whatever.
And
it's
if-
got to
Well,
be.
whatever need is, probably.
And whenever, if there's time above and beyond, they'd be dedicated to the riverfront. So one of those 3 facilities.
Well, and my biggest thing with this, Matt, is I think you're going to need more. I mean, you'll see where this starts and where this gets you and what we can do, but it's like, gosh, you could add fuel to this fire and try to do more in those different areas that I think would be more of a return on that investment too, so.
This is a good place to start. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't overextend anything.
Move it. Second.
O'Kane?
Aye.
Shaner?
Aye.
Scott? Waters?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Police Department, discussion regarding an increase in the Mayor's Youth Commission budget, operating page 238.
Still, I don't understand why it shows up in the police department. I get part of it, but if they want an increase, why would it not come wherever else?
We've had discussions on whether or not it should all just come out
Yeah,
of
I
the
think
council budget. Right now, a portion of it comes out of police. Right now, you support them with $12,500 to Siouxland Cares. That goes straight to them as a contribution. Through the police's budget, they actually submit and get reimbursement for the extra $4,000 that they have. So that's up to you guys on what you want to continue to do. I've talked to the chief, and Bob and I have both all discussed on moving it all into one budget, which does make some sense. But that would be a council decision.
Actual expenditures don't necessarily reach the $4,000 budget.
At times they have not, but it appears like they will in the future years. I believe that the times they have not are related to more COVID years where they weren't able to go do things that they typically would do. But it's my understanding from Mary that in future years, they would make that trip to Des Moines and, they would have the expenses.
So how much is it, do we give them right now? 12,500 plus 4?
Yep.
Well, I'd love to give them the full, but I'd move we give them 18,500 for the year, and it comes out of the police department, goes all in one budget, so they get a $2,000 increase. And
do you want it all in contributions to them?
Yes, I want
Okay.
it out of the police department. They don't need to be.
Out of PD?
Yeah, they don't need to be looking at receipts. Just
Yep.
one budget, and
We'll move it all to
they're
the,
not going to blow the money, so.
we'll move it all to the council's budget out of PD's, and that would increase it to 18,500.
I'll second it.
Shaner?
Aye.
Scott? Waters?
Aye.
Moore?
You're okay with that?
Yeah, no, we do play a part. We kind of liaison with them. We'll still maintain representation as a police department for whatever they need, but it always was a little odd to me that it was in our budget. So I support that move, but count on us continuing to support the Mayor's Youth Committee.
Thank you.
They want.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Aye.
O'Kane?
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
WIC IT, discussion regarding the improvement request to upgrade one IT specialist to an enterprise IT specialist, public safety, with the cost of the upgrade fully funded by Woodbury County. Operating page 304.
All paid by Woodbury County, I'll move it. I know you want to talk, but the hour's late.
I just want to listen, Mayor, so.
Scott?
Can we tack anything onto this?
Waters?
What's that?
Can we tack anything onto this?
Aye.
Send them a bill?
This was a little reach in the first part, so, yeah.
Moore?
Aye.
O'Kane?
Aye.
Shaner?
I want to say thank you, and I appreciate that. Yes, aye.
Passes 5-0.
I'll catch you later when your phony list that you gave us that you'd be willing to cut. We'll talk then.
Phony list.
We have a memo regarding the health insurance fund. This is on report page 52.
This is an item you requested early on in the CIP hearing, just to see what the health insurance fund looked like and the future of the health insurance fund.
Well, I know we're not going to change this, but Gallagher, and rightfully so, has a history of overstating what our future claims would be, which they should do. But sometimes it's not realistic. I mean, your average claims have been about 10 million, about $11 million. And now we're jumping to 12 and a half. And
So the budget that we've budgeted for the 25 year is based on the actuals for 23 that were a little over 12 million. So that's
I understand that.
why, of course.
But it's not going to, you're
It may
always,
not
in
be.
every 5 years in health insurance, if you go back and track it, you're going to have one bad, because you're going to have a couple open heart surgeries that skew it. You got to look at it. I mean, we'll leave it, but it'll be interesting to see where you finish the year, because they have a history of doing that. And when you do that, that is a direct, 50% of that cost is directly going to taxes.
I will say that they've suggested that we do an 8% increase, and we've been very conservative, and we've done a 3% increase this year, knowing that, you know, historically, our fund has outperformed what they have expected it to.
And that's their job, I get that.
So that's why we've tried to be
But then
conservative.
you build up these excesses, and then we got to have holidays, which,
Well, our goal is to not do that, so we're trying to be conservative with it, and then every year we reevaluate and take,
Okay.
you know, into account what they say, but for the most part, we have not followed what they've said for at least the last 6 or 7 years.
And historically, they are at around an 8%, you're saying?
They have been, yes.
yeah,
And
you
they're-
look at your budget and your actuals,
Right.
they're way,
There have been
Right. They
multiple
are
years
high.
that they suggest that we do an increase, that we've actually done the premium holidays because our fund is too high.
Right.
So between HR, myself, and the city manager, we've tried to conservatively do increases, and we haven't done any for multiple years, so.
So the 12.4 is the 3%? Is that your 3% increase? Or am I looking at the wrong one?
no, it's a 20% in claims, but that doesn't necessarily translate to a 3% in premium, because there's more to it than that.
Right, there's more to it than that, but yeah, we did do a 3% premium increase this year.
Memo regarding training expenses by department, operating report page 54.
This was an item that the mayor had requested for us to give to him by department, just so that everybody could be aware of where the training dollars and expenses lied. And some of them, like I indicated, are grant funded. So I wanted you to see also that some of them, though they have expenses, a portion of them are directed and paid for by the grant.
I just have a few questions. Marty, on ED and CD, other than police and fire, you have the largest training budget in the city. With that, with all that training, have an answer right now, why? Yeah, how come you're spending $50,000 on training?
Well, I'm gonna ask, this does include the HUD
Yes.
housing and
Yep, so
Neighborhood-
$31,000 of that.
neighborhood services?
Yep, through housing.
Still
and-
a large, it's still $18,000 for a very small department when you take those people out.
There's a
it's a lot of
large
money.
training budget, there is. Is,
I guess I need to see the breakdown between the different divisions, then I need to,
Yeah, and what those areas are and what that training looks like, because I was saying it earlier before we entered the wrap-up session, just that, look, I'm always going to be a proponent of continued training and education and learning from our peers. Like, I think that that's essential for collaboration, but also moving the city forward. But I do think, to the mayor's point, that you can look at, what are those different benefits? Because the city manager's point, we've probably all been to those conferences where maybe we didn't get as much out of them as we had hoped. And so if we need to look at that or see what this breakdown actually is, I mean, I'm all for that. But I want to continue to push for continuing education and thinking about what else other communities are doing and how we could collaborate. I don't want that to be, the takeaway.
do you know the breakdown between the,
yep, I'm looking that up right now.
my sense is a lot of it is that, but.
Could be.
A lot of it is HUD.
Yeah, I understand.
Housing training and.
I get that, but
there's
they
that
also
is-
have
yeah.
$25,000 in city business.
Right, because the HUD is,
I
grant,
bel-
1,000, that comes out of it, so.
I do believe the city business is, when you do the breakfast, do you do the business breakfast?
I don't think the city business line reflects training,
I didn't.
most part.
Well, I included that because some people.
Sometimes in these departments, by reading what Brad and Gordon put together, you go to a convention and you get training, but you go to a convention. So I'm just saying, you have $79,000 in city business and conventions, or whatever you want to call it, and the other departments that are a whole lot smaller than you don't have anywhere near that. And I'm just asking the question.
A lot larger than you. Is what you meant, sorry.
That's all I'm asking.
But I agree with you, Marty, is then.
I'm sorry, I need to see the number.
So your city business does include, when he does any of like meetings with anybody, but he does do the breakfast, you do like a business breakfast or?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
That is included in there.
Which this year was that Adam Carroll one, is that what it
Right.
was? Because that was in
Yeah,
coordination with
It's kind of okay.
Iowa West Coast.
Right.
I'm more concerned about what the education, the training at $49,000, even if it's $31,000 HUD money, it's still $18,000 worth of tax dollars, and that's kind of what I'm curious about. I should have asked the question sooner, but that's why I was asking, so that people would.
What types of things, Marty? Can you expand on that?
I'm trying to think, there's all the different divisions.
Where do
so-
you go for any kind of
Where
training?
do I go?
or- Yeah.
Primarily to Des Moines, to PDI conferences for economic development.
That's under conventions. That's under conventions. It's not under training.
Okay. In the past, I've gone to, I haven't actually gone for several years, but IEDC, on the economic development side, primarily there are several opportunities a year in Iowa for typically two that the ED staff would go to related to PDI.
Does include.
Right.
Typically, there's a spring one coming up here that's also put on with the utility companies, but that's not going to be a significant amount of money.
Some of it's, she said, is for inspectors. I get that.
Yeah.
Okay, that I understand.
Yeah, they have to go every single year.
Yeah, I
I
get that.
talked to Daryl about
That's
that.
education, I get that. That's
Which one?
just down to 11,000 now.
Yeah, I'm thinking about inspections as well, the training that they do, and then planning. I've actually encouraged planning to do more training. They haven't done a lot.
Right.
In all honesty, encouraged them to go to more
All right, well,
floodplain
we're not going to get
and.
the answer today.
Well, maybe next year we have,
I'll get you a breakdown of this. I'm sorry, there's too many divisions for me to sort it out right here. I didn't have that prepared, but I can do that.
And I know this is the question for Brad and for Gordon, and it's not, is most of the public works and utility training in-house? What are you guys doing? I'm glad you're training, by the way, but I hope it's a lot of safety training, so we're not putting guys in ditches the wrong way and things like that.
Brad Pitts, Utilities Director. We have done much more in-house training now that free online training is provided, but there are some where we send to other locations for training.
Okay.
Gordon Fair, City Engineer. Ours is about 50-50. We do as much as we can in-house. Others.
Okay.
and having that Public Works Director position open, conventions are going to be probably less.
Yeah,
So
that's
we get
under a
somebody-
different line item.
I mean, if that's, Dave goes to
Dave went
those.
to a lot of them because he was on a board with all of them.
Right, right. So,
We should not allow a person to be on every board at the same time. I mean, I think the guys
But
should be on
sometimes-
boards, but I hope
I
you're
didn't know
not,
that was a
I hope you're not on like 3 national boards where you, that happened.
Not on any.
We just, that's not good for the department.
Sometimes it helps, but yeah, I am.
No, I think they should be on different boards.
Yeah.
I'm just saying you can't be on every one. You can't be on SUDAS, you can't be on Public Works, you can't be on that. So. Okay.
Memos regarding a 5% reduction in expenses for each department. Reports starting on page 55.
The first memo you see here is just a summarization of the request that Finance had at the beginning of the budget. As they go through the budget, Sarah and Tiffany go through with a fine-tooth comb, send requests to the departments. I just wanted to summarize the requested changes and then what was agreed upon so that you're aware of what they've already done in this budget. I will say for the last 3 or 4 years, we have done this, and we have each year had success in departments agreeing to make some cuts. This year, like you can see, it was about $641,000. In previous years, it's been $1 million plus, but every year the departments have become more diligent about, making sure that they're not budgeting in excess of prior years. So it is dwindling down each year, but it still was a huge chunk of funds that we requested and were able to reduce.
I was going to say, that's the trouble I have is I'm sure looking out at all of you, there are opportunities to streamline or improve efficiencies, but some departments are already strapped and really operate on a shoestring budget and are doing a lot with little, especially personnel. It's expensive to hire and bring on more people, and sometimes we're just trying to do more with the people that we have, and I think that's challenging. And so I appreciate this breakdown, and I appreciate the conversation to at least think critically about this, but I do think and would commend staff for creatively coming up with things already to try to take out of their budget or what's totally proposed. And I know that Teresa, Bob, and others work through that with them to try to make those proposals.
I did want to note, too, we had a revenue increase of $1.1 million through that review as well. So have your cuts of $641,000, but increased. So really a net of about $1.8 million that was positively impacted.
But how much was your budget up?
I agree.
So it really isn't a cut. We always got, nobody here is getting a cut. Other than hopefully city council when we get done, but what the heck. But I appreciate that. I know what you're saying.
products and services that we have to use in all of our departments are not going down either. So I appreciate the diligence that they're working towards keeping costs down.
Okay?
Do you want to go through each
Yeah.
one of the budgets? Okay.
Let's get going.
So
First of all, let me just say, I'm the guy that asked for the 5%. I knew realistically nobody could cut 5%. I knew that. I said that if you
It was a
heard me.
goal.
But I would say I very much appreciate the effort on most everybody's part. I'm not 100% there with what the people that could come up with one less ream of paper at a minimum in their budget. They had to be, we're going to cut personnel if you want to do that. I knew that would happen, and that's very irritating to me. But for those of you that took the actual time to look at that and make recommendations that won't affect the service to the community, and it may be only $1,000, but when you add $1,000 and $5,000 and you multiply that by the number of departments we have, it is a significant number. And as long as you are comfortable with some of those changes and you don't decrease the service, I think I have an obligation to look at those. And so I want you to know personally, I appreciate your efforts, and I don't know what's going to pass today. I'm pretty much supportive. I'm not for closing the library down or that type of step, but if we can reduce the printing costs by 1,000, I want to ask the question, and I don't know that going electronically on all of it's an answer, but at least you took the time and initiative to do that, and I just want you to know that I do appreciate it, so thank you. All right, go ahead.
Administrative Services, page 56.
Is it realistic to expect that you can reduce postage by $5,000 with more electronic, more? As far as the staff directory, I'm not sure twice a year is terribly bad, but.
Yeah, it's just, when looking through there several times, this is opportunities, I guess, that we would be comfortable doing and see where it lies. If we're off a little bit on the 5,000, I guess we can look at that next year, but it's a target.
Well, and my thing is, this is what we talked about as far as getting those bills and just having it all electronic and signing up for it, right? I mean, the wild thing is I was definitely naive or ignorant, didn't understand that I could do that, and maybe I just missed that, opportunity or didn't see that, but I wasn't alone because I actually received a couple emails that said thank you for bringing that to light. But I do think, I don't know how you would push that education to be able to do that, but it's like, gosh, that does, unless we're.
I had that on my list.
Yeah, unless we're charging on the other end,
Maybe a new
to
bus
offset.
wrap when it comes time to rotate one out, or
Sure.
could be anything.
Yep. I think social media, though, hits a lot of
Yep,
people.
it does, hits a lot of people.
I'd move the 5,000, I wouldn't move the other two, because resident guides to me are pretty important, and I don't use the employee directly like I should, but the other people.
Well, and we have our new website with the employee directory on it too.
Yeah, I know, but.
Our portal.
It's nice to have that in your car when you're around town and see something. I use it, but I don't care if it doesn't get updated but once a year, I'd be fine with that, but anyway. I'd move the 5.
Well, and the 5 is.
That gives the 5 some.
Well, I think the 5 forces us to do more things. I mean,
To try to bring awareness to doing it electronically, like, that's my question.
Well, leave the 1,300 in to allow that to happen. That's what I'm not going to vote to get rid of that, but I think it is important that we move people to that. I'm not a very technological guy, but I would love to get Linda in my office to get the bill and pay it electronically. Would make a lot of sense to me, so.
Water.
Well, I just want clarification.
I have a second.
My clarification is just so, sure, okay, we're taking this 5,000 out or reducing for that, but it's not going to be immediate. I'm still going to have to send out, until people get on that. So I just don't know what that looks like.
You got 3 months to get that.
Right, not until July 1.
To try to get.
Yeah. You're talking a huge postage budget, so it's not going to take very many people to get on that to save.
Like I said, it's a target. It's a goal that we can, strive for.
Okay. Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
O'Kane.
Aye.
Shaner.
Aye.
Scott.
Passes 5-0.
Airport, page 57.
You're fine with the city business.
Yep,
You're fine with the fuel.
yep.
And what's the tax is 15,000?
So on the housing, it actually went down this last fall, so
Okay.
I'm comfortable with that number.
Okay.
And that just, happened to go down that much. I was as surprised as anybody.
Great.
I'd move those three items, city business, fuel revenue, because those seem legitimate, and the taxes are legitimate, so we're just basically technically correcting what's reality, so I'd move that.
Second?
I think the amortization is the bigger discussion Teresa wants to have at a
Yeah,
future date.
that's not
So what's the total we're doing here?
22.
Waters,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
O'Kane,
Aye.
Shaner,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Art Center, page 58.
You gotta wash the windows more than once a year. You
Correct.
gotta haul the trash. You don't need to buy your own mops, but can you realistically do the 2,613 in supplies?
Yeah, and to be clear, our presentation is a little different, I think, than the other departments. When we negotiated with finance back in the fall, we had agreed to just a blanket number in reductions in some of in services related to property and general supplies. As we went through in the last couple weeks to itemize what those cuts were, 'cause we hadn't actually done that, this is where we saw those savings. So in fact, the top portions, the services related to property of 8887 and general supplies of 1073, those we've already agreed to, and those cuts exist in the budget that was presented to you.
So the 88.7 you've already done.
Yep.
So the only other thing is then general supplies, like memberships in the 748. You can live with that.
Yes.
Right, but are you really going to only have the windows washed once a year?
Yes.
I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I don't either.
As we were talking it over, the clear time for us to do that is in the spring after we finished with all the mess of the winter. We think it should be able, between the upper windows, of course, we have to hire out. But in terms of the learning center, we'll just have staff take care of that.
I've had a business downtown and I mean, that's fine if everybody else agrees with that, but I just think that's a maintenance that, it's so important to have that street side looking good. And, I mean, it's a very $1,400.
It's a large effort to get that building here.
No kidding. Well,
Yeah, well, don't take this,
I'm not trying to nickel and dime it, but I'm just saying.
well, don't take his 1,000 that he's offering and let him
Yeah,
continue to do
let's
that.
keep those windows 2 times a year, please.
You're okay.
Okay.
You're done. We're not making any motions.
City Council, page 59.
Reduce the, page 50, reduce the city manager, okay, reduce the Metro Coalition by 6. Reduce city manager travel, that's fine. Eliminate special meeting funding, Bob, what's that for?
We budget $2,000 just in case of a special meeting. I don't know that we've had one in years.
Is that kind of the strategic planning type stuff?
Yeah, it might be for meals, things like that.
But you'd still have
A lot
money,
of times that comes out of my budget as well.
but you'd still have money for
Yeah, we could still do that.
Now, that was.
Oh, this is not gonna fly with us.
We need one more vote.
And this would still leave a budget of $1,000 for parade.
That's about all we spend in a good year.
I think you spent last year like $1,200.
I will say Dan and I ran out of candy in the.
Yeah, run out of
parade.
candy because you don't know how to pace yourself and parade for.
You're wrong. Our parades are getting larger and longer.
They're growing,
and
Mayor.
added
They are.
to them.
Thousands and thousands of future
Right,
voters of America.
right.
We'll have to make it work. What's the, okay, the 2,800, okay.
And what are those members?
This I don't know.
League of
We've
Cities.
just had that amount
Leave it at
budgeted, but the prior history is we're always a member of Northwest Iowa League and the National League of Cities, and this is sufficient to cover those costs.
We are a member of
We
the
are.
National League of Cities?
Yes.
So we're not really sacrificing, we're just using the correct number.
We're using the correct number.
Okay.
This would limit the ability to join other organizations as they came along without council approval.
Okay.
Okay, without council.
Bob from going rogue.
How come nobody ever goes to the National League of Cities then?
I was gonna say,
Was it in Florida?
yeah, I kind of wished that
League of Cities.
we could or would, because
I
there's
used-
the,
I used to go.
'Cause I
used to
think-
go to there rather than DC. I haven't been for
It
years.
seems like I remember a Florida one that.
and I think the
Yeah.
president of it is Cedar Rapids. I forget her name.
That's Iowa League of Cities. I
That's
believe.
Iowa League.
That's Iowa League.
But I,
We still go to that. Okay, Farmers Market gets 4,000, Siouxland Cares now gets whatever that we said. It's in the budget is 12.5, but it'll be raised. Saturday in the Park is 8,500, Sioux City Film is 25, Sculpt Siouxland is 25, Art Splash is 25, National Night Out is 2,000, and miscellaneous is 3. Are you doing the Sculpt again this year? You need the money? I'm sure you do.
No, to be clear, and I'm sorry, I wasn't aware of that. And that might be is that the insurance?
That's just what's, and we
don't know what you-
haven't used it for years.
No, there's been an annual amount set aside for Sculpt Siouxland.
But do we use it?
We haven't, no, 2 years?
So you don't need it?
No. In fact, the Art Center has taken ownership of the sculptures, so it's, effectively, the project doesn't exist as a standalone anymore.
Or in-house.
Okay, so we can do that. When we did, and I, I'm not, but Siouxland Film, if you remember, when we did it, it was to get them up and going. Do they still need it?
Oh, I think they solicit donations from other things.
What's the amount?
I don't know.
5. I know it's your favorite time of the year, but, okay, I won't touch that one. What about Saturday in the Park? Have we always done that much?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so I'll move the 6,000, the 2,500, the 2,000. I won't move the parade candy, so I can,
Hold on. So the Metro Coalition is which part?
6,000.
But we're just not participating in that?
Yeah, we are no longer a member of the Metro Coalition.
That's fine.
We are using some of that money this year. We've joined in a consortium that's doing public relations marketing, but it's just a test project. I think if we were to continue that long-term, we'd bring that back as an improvement request.
And then the sister city, you said if you or others wanted to go to that, you would just find that or?
Yeah, this would reduce one elected official to going to the sister cities, one of our sister cities.
And then the special meeting, it sounds like we still would want to have that available, but you would.
But it could be covered under city business, yes.
I don't pass out any candy, so I don't need that.
okay, reduce memberships by 2,800 and reduce the 3,000 plus the 2,500, so that'd be 55, which kind of makes up for now the increase in the Siouxland Cares. And reduce, I'm not worried about office supplies, that's good enough. I'll move that.
Second.
Moore,
Aye.
O'Kane,
Aye.
Shaner,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Pass this
I
by
noticed a
Joe.
typo on mine. I think the Metro Coalition funding is actually in my budget. I notice it's listed twice. We don't have 12,000 budgeted for it. So it's
Well, that,
shown
and
twice.
then 2,500 is the same too, isn't it? Or you?
No, that's coming out of my
Okay,
budget.
because you're planning on
Yeah.
not going, okay. And then you're okay with conferences, are you going to any?
This still allows me to go to one conference, yes.
Okay. And then reduce community inclusion conferences, and you're going to reduce the intern program by that much?
That was the balance needed to hit the 5% reduction. If the council wanted to do less than that.
But in an earlier memo, you said you could reduce it by 24 because that's all that you've been historically using.
Yes.
But you also want to have that available. I don't know if you need it available or not. I mean, I think that the interest is growing in that program, and you've had a number of different schools participating in different departments.
And budget was to backfill departments exhaust there for the,
It's if department cannot identify any funding on their own, this pot of money is available. We always challenge them to find the money on their own first, and if they can't, then we backfill it.
I think we should.
Yeah, the 34,000 is just what is needed to get to hit my 5% reduction. The council could choose any level. That being said, I think we could probably live with 25,000 as a total budget rather than the 40,260.
Well, and then you can revisit it.
Yeah, and then we can see where we're at.
Yeah, I'd move the 2,500, the 1,000, the 2,000, but I would only do 10 on the other. That leaves you 30,000, which is more than what you're saying, so.
And then as far as the conferences for inclusion and yourself, that still allows you some of that travel or some of those conferences or?
In the case of my budget, I think that would still allow me to go to one conference or the Sister Cities trip, but not both. For the community inclusion, she has a total budget in the $5,000 to $6,000 range. This would still leave enough money.
At least one, I would imagine.
What's the motion?
One or two, maybe.
What's the motion that you?
I moved the 2,500, the 1,000, the 2,000, and then instead of 34, 10,000.
Okay, I'll second.
O'Kane?
Aye.
Shaner?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Waters?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Economic and Community Development, page 61.
Is the $100,000 tax dollars?
Actually, it'd be reduced down to, it would be 200,000. It's going down to 100,000, so it's 200,000.
Okay, is that tax dollars?
Sales tax.
Sales tax? Well, that's a big number. And you're okay with that?
They haven't used.
I am, and Mike may want to comment on it, but I talked to Mike about it last
Yeah.
week, and
We kind of discussed that these are sporadic agreements that happen with airlines. I'm not expecting anything just because of the nature of the condition of the pilot shortage right now for next year. So it may come back in there in the following year, but for 25, I think we're okay.
And inspection services, I think that's,
Well, one second. And Mike, because aren't you also getting some grant funding for the marketing of this? Like I thought.
Yeah, so these would be specific agreements with airlines directly.
Oh, I got you.
This is not marketing. These are minimum
This isn't
revenue
the
agreements
airport or
to
anything
start
like
new
that.
routes for their startup costs.
I think that you're fair on your rental fee, Daryl, and might be the only guy up here who pays it. I think that's still a fair and reasonable
I think it is too.
cost, especially on larger multi-family units. I think you're more than fair on that, so. I don't know about $100 for a site plan review.
yeah, we went through all the, well, first of all, within the registration for rental properties, I think you need, that seems pretty reasonable. We looked at other fees, but that's the one that kind of jumped out. On the planning and zoning, we were looking at, there's so many different kinds of fees, but on the site plan reviews, we've only been charging for when there's a zone, when it goes through the zoning, planning and zoning and the city council. But in some cases, those can be still pretty significant amount, it takes a significant amount of staff time. So we thought maybe a lower fee of $100 would be, I can see the argument to not want to put a fee on that, but sometimes those come back several times. If it's a complex site plan, and it involves not just planning, but engineering and all.
I was going to say, we did talk at our last Public Works team meeting about this issue, or at least it was a component of this, and said just how much staff time it does take to be able to look into that and go to that. But not only that, at least the example was given by city staff that they've worked with a number of developers that then present that and are shocked when we don't.
Yeah, they say, what's your fee? And we say, we don't have one.
Yeah.
Kind of a sign there that maybe we should have a fee. But I do think based on looking at actual staff time, it does take longer for the ones that have to go all the way through to the city council. But even some of the other ones can be fairly complex. So
I appreciate the exemption for single family.
Yeah, we thought maybe we should leave the housing alone.
We don't want to discourage them.
Yeah.
I'd move all those changes.
Second. Oops, sorry.
That's fine.
By the way, Mayor, Gerald told me that it's about $7,200 on training that's required for certification.
I said that, I'm supportive of that, I get that.
Wanted to
And
mention.
they have to get that done every year, don't they?
Yeah, typically we try to spread it out. It has to actually a
Okay.
3-year renewal, but we try to spread it out each year so it keeps it somewhat even.
up.
The only big ones that will hit us in between is if we have new staff that has to go through training and certification. That'll an unexpected usually expense, but other than that, we could try to keep it even, so. Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Payne.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Tyson Event Center, page 63.
We just pay for it in the end anyway, so there's,
Yeah.
Fine.
part we've already done.
Finance, page 64.
We've already done that, so that's.
Fire, page 65.
Chief, I know what a firefighter costs. I know what public safety means, but it's difficult for me to believe that you couldn't maybe like not color your monthly and bind your monthly. I mean, it's just difficult. You couldn't come up with $100 and a budget of millions. And the rest of these guys have budgets 1/100 the size of yours, and they can come up with
Mayor,
general office
if you look at
supplies.
the memo from finance, we came up with $139,000 during the budget season that we cut. We go through every line every year.
That's not a cut. A cut is when your budget is less than last year. That's what a cut is, folks. A reduce from what you want is not a cut. It's still a budget increase. And we're not asking you to make a cut now. We're only asking you to say, there's not one thing in this budget that you could possibly forestall, and that's your answer. There isn't. And that.
Again, though, these weren't additions to our budget. These were reductions from our budget.
From last year's budget?
Yeah.
No, your budget is not lower this year than last year, is it?
It's not overall lower, but we reduced, what I'm saying is we reduced 139,000. We go through every line every year and we reduce anything we can as far as things that weren't spent the year before or things that aren't necessary.
So you need, I have no idea, $2,000 in office supplies. You put out a very nice newsletter, and I get it once every, how often?
Newsletter, I believe is bi-monthly or quarterly.
Yeah, bi-monthly, so every 2 months, and it's all bound nicely, which costs a lot of money. It's all colored, which costs a lot of money. And I realize I don't know who you send it to, and I'm not saying that that's not nice, it is. But when the rest of these people are willing to give up window washing, and we're not willing to give up that, that's not fair.
Our newsletter's not bound, Mayor, so I think we're talking about two different things. We
Well,
do an
whatever
annual report.
you put in the plastic deal.
Annual report.
That's the annual report.
Okay.
Yeah. Our newsletter's a piece of paper.
Here's the annual report, we can reuse books. Just little stuff like that I don't know, it really bothers me. I know it doesn't bother the rest of them probably, but it bothers
I
me.
don't understand the intention behind what you're saying, and I understand what the chief is saying, that we already went through this and tried cutting all the fat out that we could, or, went through that effort, but I understand, Mayor, your frustration that it's like, do we need to print that? Do we need to have that? Do we need the update? Could it just be online and sent in a memo? That type of stuff. And I don't know what that cost is.
Well, even the monthly newsletter that you get, does it have to be, why can't it be disseminated with electronically? That's what the rest of the world is going to, but I don't know. I'm bothered by this in the police department just because just because bothered by it.
Because I would just say that, Chief, I mean, I would second the mayor's thought or notion that, I don't know. I thought it was much more than just the annual report that was abound.
Thinking about the Bugle?
Exactly like that. Yeah, maybe it's the Bugle or something like that. I don't know how
Bugle-
often you're putting out those.
The Bugle is the paper newsletter that comes out, I think it's bi-monthly.
Because you put out numerous things, yeah, that are that. Oh, that was the strategic plan.
That's once every 3 years.
Yeah, 25. I just would take a hard look at those different things and see if you could move to electronically and who's looking at that or what, because I do think it's important information. I appreciate looking over it and reading it, but I'm just saying too, like, if I could look at it and glance at an email, you don't have to worry about printing or distributing or anything else. And if that's, like the mayor used as an example, $1,400 for window washing, you're just reducing by $1,400 for printing costs, so. That's all I had, though.
I'd move $2,500 and let the chief find supplies that he can cut that. I'm sure it won't pass, but I'll feel better and sleep better tonight, so. Is there a second? Not, we'll move on.
Human Resources, page 67.
I haven't been to the fall or spring health fair admittedly, but talk to me about your experience with it and whether it's necessary, whether it could be revamped, or, look, I'm not in the business of wanting to cut everything and strip it all away. And I think your training for human resources staff is extraordinarily important. But I would just ask, talk to me about attendance of those, utilization of that, the importance, that type of stuff.
The spring and fall health fairs and blood draws, the money there pays for an offset for some of the immunizations that our employees receive at the fall health fair and some of the blood draws that we have coming up in a couple of weeks. This fund offsets a portion of those costs. The employee still has to pay some of that. We have to pay for the nurses that come down and do the blood draws. There's some room rentals at the expo center and other places. There's just the lunch that is provided at the fall health fair, which is done by Hy-Vee. The employee still bears a cost of that. That's what some of this money is for. I do hear really good feedback about the fall health fair. It is quite large. It's well attended. We are back up between 45 and 50 vendors. We can certainly look at eliminating possibly the lunch. We had a large increase in expenses this year from the lunch. It went up dramatically. In addition to Walgreens, this year they provided like an administrative fee to have their staff there to give the immunizations. We never had that before, and it was a significant amount of money that we didn't have budgeted. And the spring wellness draws, or the blood draws that are coming up in a couple of weeks, it's usually between about 50 and 75 employees that participate in those blood draws. They're optional, and there's a large panel that people can choose from.
Mm-hmm.
Both events contribute, and you can get points towards the wellness bonus. So
Some people wouldn't do it unless they had it here.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
No.
Well, and I agree, it's not worth eliminating both. The one thing that I would say to you is whether it was Walgreens or even the lunch service, is you can creatively look at bidding that out or trying different vendors or things like that. I mean, whether it was, well, or even just other restaurants could probably provide you a cheaper catering option perhaps. And then the immunizations, I mean, working with a local pharmacy or something that could administer might be more beneficial.
We do reach out for different, for lunch vendors. We chose Hy-Vee because they were less expensive, but we can certainly look at some other, maybe eliminating it altogether or just providing snacks. But I would hate to see it go away, but.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Can you realistically reduce the the professional services? Can you realistically do that?
Next year, we do not have any collective bargaining agreements, so yes, we can reduce some of it. What else is in there?
Reduction of Ayler's.
That would be a reduction. The wellness portal comes from some of it comes from there, that we log our points for the
Right,
sick
but
leave
you're still
bonus.
going to have 171. So,
I think-
you'd have 150. Is that going to be enough?
I believe that should be enough.
And then,
The print app, I had a question about that one, because we have to post some of that information. So is that just shifting that expense onto departments to print off the things for employees that don't have email access?
Right. The employees that don't have email access in the field, we do require the departments to print that off and provide that to them.
Okay.
We do have a health insurance fund, the 610 fund, that has a print line item. So there are requirements for health insurance things that will come out of that fund. So it's not all funding together.
Okay.
It's just, yeah.
That's a large reduction total. Can you, I mean, do you feel confident? Because we don't want it to be hurt you.
The overall, or what, is that what you're asking me?
Are any of these questionable?
Well, the employee recognition fund, this cut would eliminate every single event that we do for employee recognition. And as you know, we are doing a culture survey right now, and culture is very important to our employees, and I think any employee out there. So by
Which one's that coming out of?
City business.
Oh.
On the top of page 2.
I'd move the 19.3 and that's it.
Second.
Which is the professional
So they're not
services.
going to have negotiation.
Scott?
Aye.
Waters?
Aye.
Moore? O'Kane?
Aye.
Shaner?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Human rights, page 70.
The 2,000, Karen, is that realistic? The professional service?
God, I hope it is. That's sort of, that area, we're never quite sure, because one of the things that comes out of there is translation services. So I think we're okay reducing that by 2,000. I guess we'll find out.
Because then you could utilize city staff that's bilingual? Trilingual?
Not really, no. For example, last week, the staff ended up using Language Line to deal with someone, and it wasn't just a quick conversation. It was probably 45 minutes of dealing with the individual, and it'll be interesting to see what that bill is like. When you look at the Language Line charges, we're one of the departments that uses it the most. Anyhow, we do already have 2 Spanish speakers in the office, so if it's Spanish, we have no problem. In fact, sometimes other departments use our staff. We just don't have that many other languages in the building to be able to do that. I think the 2,000 into professional services, I think will be okay. The other thing that might impact that is if we need to use ASL interpreters. They can be quite expensive.
I'd move the employee reimbursement 350, professional services 2,000, and memberships 50.
Second.
The what ones? Say those again.
The 350, the first one, the second one 2,000, and the membership for $50.
Well, and I would just, the professional services want to know what the impact is as far as, that's an important part, but yeah.
You won't be using
He
it
runs short.
Oh, no, we'll still be
less
using it.
intentionally,
Yeah.
right?
He runs short, we'll have to discuss that because we
Yeah.
cannot not do that.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
So it's not going away, got it.
No.
All right.
Waters?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
O'Kane?
Aye.
Shaner?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Pass 5-0.
Thank you.
Legal Department, page 72.
Got to go to training once in a while out of the office, so that's not,
Yeah, I'm not a fan of cutting any of this.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Library, page 73.
Always. These are the, I'm not,
I know.
I'm not,
I'm not a fan of it either. You know, it was rough. You know, we have been absorbing for several years the 5% increase in all our software, annual software subscriptions and things like that. So when we looked at that, we couldn't cut it. You know, our budget is just less or just over the 5% of our, for collection development. So we couldn't really cut that. You know, we didn't think using the books from a couple years ago, you know, would make people happy. But, you know, so and I hated having anything that impacted staffing, but that, you know, is a large portion of our budget. And, you know.
well, I'm to say the same thing I said to the fire chief. I've done this before, and it always comes with things that you know we're never going to cut, and that bothers.
Well, the board has instructed us we are doing a study right now of the usage of Perry Creek. It is dropped off significantly, and how much it costs per circulation item out there, how much it costs to run it, divide it by the total circulation. And I have not compared it. I'm still working on downtown and Morningside, but right now it's like $5, around $5 per circ at Perry Creek, which is pretty high.
Could it be like a remote? Is it where they have, you know, boxes or something that?
We have, but, you know, to initially set up like a vending machine with lockers for people, we'd have to find a place, you know, maybe at Walmart or Hy-Vee or something, you know, if they would house it for us. But those cost about $150,000 initially, and I don't know what the annual would be on that.
I would probably be in favor of the Perry Creek branch part of the cut and not the other.
Well, and I think, I appreciate what you're looking at and doing. I think that you should be critical in looking at that. No one wants to eliminate staff necessarily or do anything that or just access, you know, on the side of this other.
I know, that's what worries us, is because then the north side of town is, you know, without service.
Correct, and that's where I guess I want to see how that plays out or what your internal review would say about that, because I would then just know that council would ask you to look at that critically and say, well, you know, if we reduced hours by X there or had it only available during these times, or if we coordinated with some other place there.
Yeah, and that would, because even if we reduced the hours, we're still paying, I think it's $2,700 a month for rent for that building. So that's a big chunk of it. Yeah, yeah. And then a collection would be the same to house it out there. This would
have a little bit of a knowledge already with the $5 and
yeah.
Know that it's costly.
Yeah, but I can get back to you, and when we get that done, once I've compiled Morningside and downtown to show what what it costs per checkout, basically, is what we're looking at.
This may be the first publicity too about you're looking at this.
Yeah.
That could increase usage.
Well, and we just want to make sure we're, you know, spending the money fiscally, and, you know, if it's costing $5 to check out a book, and, you know, we just don't know if that's, you know, the right way to go. And maybe that money is better spent with remote service or, you know, with a box or the lockers and things.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to your report.
Okay, I can get it back to you. Thank you.
Museum, page 74.
How can the stormwater fee be $14,000 on the museum? Is it $1,200? We paying the whole thing, or is the school district paying?
It's a split, and we just recently, well,
I think last year was the first year when we started getting dinged for it, but, I mean, I question it.
That's ridiculous. I mean,
I agree.
I can't believe that that is that much.
It's the school board's billing, so.
But how much of it's the school boards?
Well, we have that.
I mean, your portion is 14,000?
It's, yeah.
The utilities in the school board's name, so.
It's a 55-45 split.
Right, so you're telling me the stormwater fee on the museum is $28,000?
And this is our 55%.
Well, more than that. I mean, it's 23, there's no way that's $46,000 a year. If stormwater fees were that high for businesses, they'd all be screaming. How much, can you look up like?
I'd have to.
I think you're paying the whole thing.
Well, we're paying a pretty good chunk of it. I mean, like I said, it was just.
Why would you pay any more? There's 3 floors to the building. You got 1 floor.
Well, part of the lease, going back to the original agreement, we pay $1 a year for leasing it for 50 years, but then the utility costs were split 55-45. So.
But you're saying the stormwater fee alone for you, well, there's no way.
Is that part of the overall utility?
I can look up and see what the monthly charge or the annual charge is. I don't have access now, but I can look.
Yeah. And we haven't been doing it for the whole time. It was a fairly recent development. So I think the school board probably finally decided, why aren't we splitting this out? I haven't talked to them about it, but and for me, it was like, and I put it in there, it's like, okay, left pocket, right pocket. If we pay it, it's still going in the city funds. So maybe, I thought, well, maybe that's the idea that.
Well, the issue is the bill comes to the Sioux City Community School District. It doesn't come to you.
Correct.
So we can't, it's not from city to city, it's from city to the school. So that's why it's billed the way it is.
No, I get that, but I don't believe that bill can be that high, or every business in downtown would be going nuts.
So they split out the stormwater?
Yeah, I get that.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and the water makes sense, even though, I mean, truthfully, and we had a discussion back in the Brian Fahrenholtz days, we probably don't use 45% of the water, but that's okay. I mean, it's, especially when they're going to have more students in there, but that was part of the deal. But the stormwater ones, when you look at it, what the square footage of the building is and what the, I mean, I guess if you do the roof and the plaza area, which is, I mean, you know, I just find it odd.
Steve, the way this is written up, though, you said the museum is assessed stormwater fee as a portion of the Sioux City School District billing. As with the Skywalk fee, we believe this is simply moving money from one city department to another.
I
We're
believe,
not aware that other departments are charged this fee. So who's sending you the billing?
Well, he's got to pay that.
No, but it's not from one city department to another.
well,
You're not billing.
what I'm saying is, Mr. Moore, is when we pay that stormwater fee, I mean, it's a city paying the city.
Correct. Or like the Skywalk, we're paying that into the
I mean,
Skywalk.
so, I mean, take for instance, I don't expect to have them, but you take this building, not every department is portioned out storm drainage. But if they were, it'd be the city paying the city.
But it's the same thing for the library, so that part.
Right, but the city is billing the school board, and how is your portion of it this much? How is that bill that big for this to become your portion, is what we wonder.
Yeah, I get that, but I think the Skywalk.
I think if I hear the mayor correctly, is it conceivable that the whole building is liable for that much in storm drainage? And I don't do the assessment, but that's what they get billed for, and then we pay the 45%.
I'm not sure the Skywalk assessment can be 60,000, or, well, it could be 35, yeah, that could be.
Well, in the Skywalk, it's, once again, I mean, if, in fact, when the elevator broke down, this goes back a couple of years, truthfully, we were pleased as heck because we didn't get any, we just get minimal business out of Skywalk. I mean, a lot of people use it, but we don't see it. But same thing with the Skywalk. It's like, if I understand the assessment right for the school district, they really get hit with 3 different portions of the Skywalk.
Well, and they rely on it too, and it gets heavy usage, it's embedded in their building, but I don't see the benefit. Well, it's nice to be able to walk past those windows and see things into the museum, and you can make the argument that that probably pulls in some foot traffic, but regardless, they've got to go downstairs and then most of the time right out that door, outside, walk around to the front door and go back in the museum door, so I don't feel like that's fair for us to pay that portion.
But when we built Skywalks, nobody on the first floor thought it was fair.
Right.
That formula was developed years ago. And
Yeah, I mean, that same argument in Des Moines.
Right, yep.
That's the total.
I just don't feel like our percentage of that.
Is what?
Is there stormwater?
Yeah, times
think it-
45%.
Considering
That's
that
the
they
full
use
bill.
it daily.
He's paying the full bill is what I'm saying.
Not $48,000.
Okay, you're right, yep, okay.
So,
Stormwater bill's 48, I can't believe that we're collecting that kind of money.
Yeah, I mean,
County courthouse and others are paying it, so.
Mayor,
got a
you and
big
I have
building.
had that discussion about stormwater fee before, but it's like,
Well, it's, but it's a way, it's the only way you get anything out of hospitals in this town.
you've made the statement, everybody pays storm drainage fee. I agree with that.
So
But we're
everybody
paying a
don't
lot.
Pay what they create. All right, well, I guess there's not much we're gonna do with yours, so unless you guys see something.
Parks and Recreation, page 75.
I don't think,
Any of those?
okay. let's
Right.
keep going.
Yeah.
I mean, would encourage I don't know where Matt went, but he's got a very capable board. I hope they are looking at their fees to see.
Police Department, page 77.
What was my motion for the fire department? I'll move to reduce 2,500. No, I won't get a second. I'll feel good about it.
For what though, Mayor?
Here,
He wants him to find it.
You find 2,500?
Sure, and I would apologize, I think I don't want to speak for the other directors, but I think there was a certain amount of anxiety as to how this proposal would look for you folks, and we want to give you what you want. Since we have such a large budget, and I know Tom and I discussed this, our hope was to try to show you what those cuts might look like. We've consulted with Teresa, and I look, and everybody's memos look a little bit differently. Since ours is such a vast budget, we started looking at line by line, and then I had some proposals, but we kind of gave you a broad stroke here. So it wasn't a statement that we can't make cuts. That obviously we can. We'd also appreciate some guidance from the council. Is there certain things that you would like to see us cut? I mean, vehicles, training. If there's certain guidance that you have for us, I'm more than happy to listen. We wanted to, when I saw some of the other memos of smaller departments that could look and say, okay, here's our supplies, here's this. We have police department has an excess of $27 million budget, which means a 5% cut, it's what, $1,400,000.
Chief, I made it very clear that I made it as clear as I could make it. I knew that lots of departments couldn't get there, but do what you could do. I made that crystal clear. And to say that I didn't, no, I'll get the tape.
I'm not saying that, Mr. Mayor. I think, and I won't speak for the other department heads at all. I think if you would like line by line, I'll sit down with my staff and we can do that. We can make cuts. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Just how this looked to you, the format that we advanced it to you. If it's not what you were looking for, I apologize.
Thank you, Chief. I'll second the mayor's motion.
You're going to do it to police and not fire.
Well, we could revisit that.
You did make that
I was not here. I was not here during the fire discussion. I had to step out. So I didn't feel like I could really participate in that.
Well, and Chief, I do feel that there was a lot of anxiety from staff members and directors of not knowing what the direction was or what exactly they should be looking to cut. And I heard what the mayor said, and I understand. But if I was in your situation, I would have struggled to put that together as well. And how do you look line by line, especially when you're looking at a $27 million budget, to being able, what would amount to any significant finding, or anything of reasonable percentage. But yeah, I can understand your plight and what you were faced with, and I understand what you presented as well. It's just not what necessarily was looked for.
Well, and I hope you as a council understand, we want, all of these department heads, all of us want to give you what you want and what you need, and we try to be very responsive. And I know the mayor, Mr. Mayor, I'm not at all questioning the directions that you gave. We do want to give you what you ask for. So if this isn't it, I will apologize for the work product. It's my work product. I think we looked at large scale. We looked at that 5% number and figured, how do we get there? And so, again, this was not meant to in any way be disingenuous. It was to give you a slice of pie of a very big budget and get your guidance on how you think we should move forward. Of course we can make cuts. There is, we try to do that during the budget process each year. But I guess, again, having guidance from you as to what you'd like to see and where that would come from, we're happy to revisit it. I can meet with my staff. We talked about this. We can get specific items.
O'Kane?
No.
Shaner?
In light that we didn't hold fire department to it, no.
Scott?
Yes.
Waters?
No.
Moore?
Aye.
Okay.
Bales, 2-3.
Can I just say one thing? Police and fire, now you kind of know what we're getting at, it's a little more clear. Could be break room supplies, it could be, anything where you can show a savings. Is it police cars, is it sirens, is it safety? No. It could be anything, though, is what we're getting at.
If this had passed, I would have asked the fire chief if he could live with the $2,500 decrease as well. I'm sorry I had to step out. It was just something I had to do, and so I missed the discussion. So I didn't feel right seconding the motion without having that discussion. But I would have had the same question of you as I did the police chief. I would have that for the fire chief. So, but since it died, it doesn't matter at this point.
Could be more electronic memos to staff that don't have to be printed. It could be anything like that. And you come back and say, well, we found about probably $1,000 that we could save. I mean, anything, just that contributes to something that could be wasted, something that could be done less frequently, anything like that. So I just want to add that.
No, and we did have, from the police department side, we had very specific discussions. I just didn't convey those numbers in the memo because, again, we were looking at that 5%.
You were,
So
I understand. Yep, I understand. So I'm just saying it can be way less. It can be
No, we can make reductions.
0.05%
Yes.
of a percent. Just show us that you're diligent on this.
Well, and the tough part about that too is you're asking staff time to.
I know.
Go through all of this. So it's about some walk.
Again, and respectfully, I say that we did it. We went through line by line with our staff in about 3 different meetings, plus finance, and we looked at what we could cut that wouldn't affect services because there wasn't direction for that. So, again, we can go further if you want.
Didn't pass, so it doesn't matter. Let's move on.
Parking and Skywalk, page 78.
Can answer questions related to this.
Yeah, that's kind of fixed and charged back, so.
Streets, page 79.
That's realistic, Brad, but this is road use funds probably, right?
Yes, it is. Correct.
I had several conversations with Patrick, and after those conversations, I think this is what we landed on. So, again, realistic at this point in time for what we can.
But if you use the road use funds, you can use them somewhere else.
It just stays in that fund from year
Stays
to
in road use. I know we use it up every year, right?
year. We have some carryover from year to year,
Right,
but
but-
eventually, within the 5 years, we've talked about the fund, I mean, we may have some issues. So any reduction in the fund is helpful.
Okay, well then, you're okay with it. I'll move that.
So you're moving the 2 reductions?
Yeah.
I'll second that, but the reduced paved streets, what's that mean? Operating budget, reduced paved streets?
Just some of the functions that take place on paved streets would be reduced. So,
Still doing the potholes, though.
still doing the
You're
potholes.
still doing the crack sealing and all that.
Yeah,
Yep.
want to eliminate that.
Yeah, we're not eliminating certain services, it's just
I-
overall budget.
I don't agree with this.
We're not reducing then paved streets, any streets that need to be paved?
No, it's,
Is it just because you're not using the whole budget?
right,
So you're not reducing service?
right.
But you could do that elsewhere, is my thing. I mean,
They can only do so much with the people they have, Alex, that's the problem. I mean, if Patrick says he's not going to reduce service, and he can't use it because he doesn't have enough people to do any more than what he's doing, then why? I mean, it doesn't matter, it carries over anyway, but if Teresa says that helps, the reality is it just stays in the road use fund. But whatever you want to do,
and I suppose, I mean,
It just stays in the fund. It does help them from year to year if the fund starts to get crunched.
But, and I've got confidence that they're not going to use it if they don't have to anyway. I mean, but
And if they
whatever
do,
you guys
I mean,
want to do, let's
If
just,
we happen to have a year where we have an increased snow or ice, we do budget ads, so.
Right.
And that comes to you guys, you're aware of that during the budget amendment, so. It's not like we're going to say they can't plow the streets. I mean, they'll do a budget ad to make sure the services aren't disrupted.
That's in your memo here.
Shaner?
Aye.
Scott?
aye.
Waters?
aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Payne?
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Engineering, page 80.
Gordon, I'm not very complimentary of the engineering department, but I want to give you an attaboy today when you deserve one. You did a very nice job here. I don't know if you can really accept all the things that you put out there, but you did a good job, so I want to tell you that.
Thank you.
Education and training, realistically, I mean, you got people that have to be continuing ed, that's going to be enough.
It'll be tight.
Huh?
It'll be tight.
Okay, and 15,000 for survey work, that's going to be,
Because we don't have a surveyor.
right,
We have to farm it out to
Right.
2 different firms. One way we could backfill that is to actually charge people when they need that work checked.
when you say charge, who would you charge?
Well, there's, right now, there's a bank that's going in there next to Perkins over on Gordon Drive in front of Planet Fitness.
Okay,
They had to subdivide that, so they hired a surveyor. They put the plat to me, and I have to send that out to a site like DGR to review it. I use DGR and I use MLS
and
for
who's doing that?
the property owner.
And why would we have to hire the surveyor?
They hired their surveyor to do the split, then we hire a surveyor, another independent surveyor to check it.
Okay.
Because we don't have any surveyors on
Okay,
staff.
okay.
Well, that should be billed.
Necessarily.
Yeah, because all you're
To review a survey. I mean, no offense, but reviewing a survey is a lot different than making.
That's true. That's true.
Okay, so
But I still think Gordon would want to keep that in there, Mayor.
yeah, that's why I'm asking.
Surveys.
Okay. And then conventions, that probably is realistic, because Dave went to a lot, I get that.
Yeah.
How would you reduce your advertising budget?
Right now, that's for jobs, meaning if we have an open position and we advertise it through APWA or some other place, but right now, we do have openings. We have 3.5 openings.
We bill individual departments for that?
Yes.
For
Well,
advertising?
but they can do their own in that too. Because they have access to those publications more
like,
than Janelle does.
Yeah, HR can't do some of those postings because they don't have memberships and whatnot. So the departments pay for those because HR wouldn't have the ability to get onto those specific.
But it's just interesting that it comes out of your budget, because it's not necessarily any fault of your own that you have openings or that you have to be paying for those.
Somebody, I mean, they either come out of their budget or HR's budget.
Correct, yeah.
I would keep it.
Here's where I would be. The convention, I think that's legitimate. We don't reduce the other, then you can rob Peter to pay Paul on the training for the 2,000, and I'd go for those, those fee increases. I'm shocked that you have to process a permit to having done some houses. I mean, you got to process a permit. Either we don't give them a permit or we should charge them $15. I think that's fair and reasonable. For what I pay for containers, they're just going to add it to me, and that's the way it goes. And I think the same way with that right-of-way charge or whatever, the fee's not been enforced, but it should be in there. So I would vote for those 4 things without any problem. The rest of them are.
So wait, the fees, the 2 fees, and?
The convention for 2,500, the 2,000 in education, and then the 2 fees, the dumpster and the right-of-way fees.
While you're talking about fees, there are multiple other ones I didn't include on this one that.
Well, you should give us a list.
One is sidewalks, fiber permits. Those fiber permits could be increased.
Okay, well, give us a
We
list.
spent a lot of time on those.
Give us a list. That doesn't have to come as part of this budget, but give them to us before we get too far down the road.
Well, and I guess I wouldn't be a fan of saying education or conventions if, well, I guess it makes sense that if the public works director is not going to those, then maybe you don't need that, so maybe that's okay. But the education, if you're saying it's tight, but you also came up with a way to bring in revenue to offset that, I don't necessarily want to take that away.
I asked him if he thought he could live with it, and he said he could, right, but he could live with it. If you
Still
can't,
meet your needs?
if you can't, say that now.
What's that?
Still meet your
Yeah.
education training?
If you think it's necessary, you got to say it.
Right.
But
That's
No, and I will. Like I said, I looked at it honestly, and I said, because the engineering licenses, there's 4 of us, not including Dave or Dave's position. We have to get so many credits or professional development hours every other year. So this year, we'll probably be fine. It's next year, we might have to put it back to 10,000. Similar to the safety equipment. Right now, we have enough hard hats and vests, but next year, I'll have to backfill.
$500.
We're not doing.
Not worth it for safety.
No, we'll keep that.
Second the mayor's motion.
Shaner?
Well, can I just get the clarity then, what we're,
The education, Dave's,
By 2,000.
he said he doesn't need the convention because there won't be as much there, and then the 2 fee increases,
okay,
back page.
all right, aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Waters?
aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Kane?
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
And you want a memo for the other fee?
Yeah, you
Potential
bet.
fee increases, yep.
Thanks, Gordon.
Fleet operations, page 82.
I can discuss and answer any questions. These items are all billed out appropriately to the departments based on the repairs performed and fuel purchased. Okay.
Transit, page 83.
Mike, how do you think you can reduce professional services?
That kind of is cyclical based on what our grant cycles are for certain programs. So I think for next fiscal year, we could probably go down with what we need outside consultants for. So I think we can live with 10,000 for next year.
Think you can?
Yep. The next year it might be back up again because they ebb and flow. But
And how will that work? I mean, if we reduce it to 10 now, you'll just come with an addition next year, or?
Yep. Yep. And I'll have to justify it. They'll ask questions just like they do now, why it went up, and I'll justify that this is a third-year cycle for certain grants.
Right, we will ask.
I'll move that.
As long as you note it. We
Just
might
the
not.
professional, Mayor?
Yeah.
Scott?
Aye.
Waters?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
O'Kane?
Aye.
Shaner?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Who seconded? More.
Environmental, page 84.
How can you reduce license and permits, not think?
How can we reduce it?
Yeah, is there something you don't have to join or pay for a license this year or something?
It's just one person in that role, and they've received all their licenses last year, so now it's just maintaining it.
Why would you reduce professional services? What would that be? You have any idea? It's not a big deal, I'm just asking.
I can look into that.
All right. Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Renewable fuels, page 85.
These two are very realistic. I'm not gonna suffer revenue losses because of doing these two things.
Correct. We've implemented some different styles, especially for the chemicals. We've switched to a different style of a pump that's more efficient.
Okay. I'll move that.
Second.
Waters?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Kane?
Aye.
Shaner?
Aye.
Scott?
Passes 5-0.
Wastewater, page 86.
Electric can be reduced for sure. Permit fee would recover the cost for inspections, administrative fees. Create an annual permit fee for fat, oil, grease establishments. I think we've already piled on those people pretty hard.
And is that the FOG program, is that more like restaurants or different thing, anyone that we're working with on that?
Yeah, it's probably 99% restaurants.
Yeah.
This is just an idea.
Right. I just moved the $2,500 if it's budgeted somewhere else, and it's no reason to have it twice. I don't want to get rid of the bus wrap, and I don't want to take a chance on safety glasses, and
Second.
Moore?
Aye.
O'Kane?
Aye.
Shaner?
Aye.
Scott? Waters?
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Utilities Administration, page 87.
yeah, not worth anything.
Thank you.
Water, page 88.
These are not going to affect service.
No, these will not affect service. The only thing I would say on the membership side is I realize it's a membership and we can live without it. The Sioux City is a utility member for the American Water Works Association with my involvement in that. Years ago, only probably 4 years ago, we went from having individual members to just doing a utility membership. So if you wanted to reduce the utility membership, we could go back to having individual memberships under American Water Works.
Is that what the 5,800 is for?
Yeah, yeah.
How are you going to reduce technical services?
Don't recall the exact details on that, but looking back at the past budgets,
You're okay.
we were okay with that.
So that and the maintenance, you're sure you're okay with the maintenance?
Yeah, I mean, we realize that there are items that can break that we don't anticipate, but again, looking back at the budget, I think we're okay with those reductions. Probably more so on the buildings and grounds, more so than the maintenance, machinery and equipment.
I'd move 5,000 on the technical services and 5,000 on the maintenance and grounds.
Kane?
Aye.
Shaner?
Aye.
Scott? Waters?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Transmission and distribution and sewer, page 89.
You got enough supplies to make sure you can fix the broken water mains and all that?
Again, depends on the number, but again, looking back at previous budgets and where we're at this year, I think we would be okay. Maybe we could probably, instead of 15 on the operating supplies, maybe do 10. The construction contractual services, essentially what that is when we are extremely busy with other things and a break would come up, we would hire somebody to do that. You know, $9,500 or $9,400 would maybe be one job. So I feel pretty confident that we can accomplish that.
$10,000 on the operating supplies.
Oh.
Well, you said just reduce it by 5, right? Or no?
On, reduce it by 5, so 10 would be okay.
I'd
Total
move it
reduction of 10, right?
Right now you have reduced by 15,000. You're saying reduced by 10,000?
Right.
I got it now.
I'd reduce 9452, but I'd just go 5,000 on the supplies. The 2,000 on the technical's okay. I would not reduce the machinery and equipment. That comes home to home.
I agree with that.
And I'd reduce the operating down to 10, 10,000 like up above. And I wouldn't reduce the small tools. You need those. So basically.
I just want to clarify the reduction on operating supplies is 10,000 for each.
Leave it at 10,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Small tools included or not?
No.
I apologize, okay. O'Kane?
Aye.
Shaner?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Waters?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Wendy, we made you wait a long time for nothing. I don't know how you can't run what you do with any big reduction.
I'll say a few words. You waited.
Yeah, go ahead.
Give us a little input.
You know, obviously, our budget is mostly personnel expenses. You know, we're not going to conventions. We've already reduced our training, moving as much we can to 911. Still committed to funding anything we can with 911. So,
Yep. Okay.
The 50.
Thank you.
The 50 to 60 hours a week is.
Keep the chairs full.
Gone by the wayside.
IT, page 91.
Discontinue all of the things that will leave our system unprotected. That would be responsible for every elected official to take your recommendations.
Well, the top two, I think, are feasible if the cybersecurity risk insurance, if they're okay with us doing a biannual audit every 2 years, I'm fine with that. We've done it 3 years in a row. We've got a lot of processes in place for doing that audit.
Okay.
I'd be okay with that, but again, it would bump up next year's budget. Dan?
Favor of that.
Okay.
Go ahead with your story.
Okay, and the second one, we believe we have another utility that can maybe probably do that function for us. So, and we just signed that contract, so we're good for a year. We could implement that new utility to take the second one.
Okay.
$8,400. The third one, been visiting with Wendy and her contacts. We could only probably get about 10% of that. I could only charge the 911 board for the 911 people that use that service, so public safety.
$798?
Sure.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And that's, yeah.
With that one.
Or 797, I'm not sure.
Glad you had to wait here all day for that.
Yep.
Thanks,
Is that it?
John. Thanks, John.
Yep.
Thank you.
Moving on to operating technical changes. Fire Department, update the EMS complement to reflect changes made via Resolution 2024-0091 and 2024-0164. Library, move $7,500 from Morningside Library snow removal and a portion of salaries from the parking budget to the library budget. Is there anything else we want to go on to before we make our final motions? Okay.
$182,000 worth of cell phones is absolutely ridiculous, and we must just hand them out around here. And number one, we got to figure out a way to bid the cell phones. And number two, I just think we have people sitting at desks that get cell phones, and I don't understand that. I understand why every field person should have it. I understand why department heads should have it. I get all that, but.
I think we need to review who qualifies to have those phones.
Yeah. And so I would move to reduce that by $25,000 and leave it up to the finance department to really get a policy in place with you, Bob, to figure out how that works. And it could be lower than that. I don't know the answer, but it could be.
I was going to say.
We actually have a policy drafted right now in legal for review, and it will go to the city manager. It will move the tiers different than they are right now. So most everybody gets a $50 reimbursement, but because it was set up before data and no data, well, now pretty much everybody has data. It'll move to more of a service-driven, your job function-driven, and Bob will review that soon, and then we'll determine who falls into what category. And it is based on, the emergence of your role with the city, so there'll be 3 tiers.
Who needs to be called on it?
And who will be required to answer. So like, for instance, the city manager, he's typically on call, answers at all times. People that are on the streets that, go out on the streets, they don't necessarily get called after hours, but they are during the business hour getting called. Just because they have data on their phone doesn't mean that they should get more of a reimbursement, because it really should be based on your function.
And that's why
I'm up.
I wouldn't necessarily have a number associated with it. I would go through this process and tell us what that savings is going to be. Rather than giving you a target to shoot for, I would just be comfortable with you making your recommendation and telling us this is what we were able to reduce after that reorganization.
Hope you can get that done before the final budget.
We'll work on that. I will say that a large portion of this is, some is reimbursement and some is actually cell phones, and a lot of those are, public safety, other people that are required to have cell phones. So there's a chunk of that budget that's kind of outside of doing the RFP. It will be difficult for us to make movement on.
All right.
But we will.
Get my motion.
Do
All
as we
right,
can.
go ahead. Let's go.
What are we doing?
What she's got to, what
Yeah,
if
we
you want
need
a
a
motion now to accept that stuff? I'll
To
move
direct
it.
staff to incorporate the.
Except what stuff?
The
Okay,
technical
sorry.
changes
I
to
didn't realize we were moving on. Motion directing staff to incorporate all technical changes into the FY25 CIP and FY25 operating budgets.
second.
O'Kane?
Aye.
Shaner?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Waters?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Motion directing staff to balance the FY25 CIP and FY25 operating budgets.
Move it.
Second.
O'Kane?
Aye.
Shaner?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Waters?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
What's that? Yes, I'll move it.
Second.
Shaner?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Waters?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
O'Kane?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.